evening, everyone. Thorne here, coming at you live. Just grooving to the sound. That's enough of that. Hey guys, welcome and hello to another beautiful Thursday evening. Apparently there's still wildfires going on. Everybody's talking about it. So, hopefully you're all doing okay. I do see some of you guys talking about how you're getting bad air quality. Do what you can. An old trick is to, you can always put a wet, handkerchief over your nose or whatever. Might be a little hard to breathe, though. Let's not go back to masking, shall we? Can we just avoid that kind of crap? We ain't doing that again. So let's say hi to everybody. First things first, we have a wonderful, generous contribution by Raquel Kelly. Before I even showed up, a nice, beautiful $25 spot. Thank you very much. That will go into the coffers for future expansions. Probably to get me a cup of coffee or two, something like that. But welcome, Raquel Kelly. She says, good evening, DH and beautiful Camilla. Good evening, everyone. So thank you very much, Raquel Kelly. I appreciate it. Kelly Meadows says, hello and good evening. It's smoky, smoggy, and hazy here in Cleveland tonight. Yeah, Cleveland, I guess, I don't know what's going on with these Canadian wildfires. I guess they're not done, making smoked bacon or whatever it is they got going on. We could ask, I think it's Christian is in Canada, but I think he's on the other end of the Canadian universe from where those fires are. Joffrey says, good evening, everyone. Doing good. Atropa is here. What's up, Atropa? She says, people are early. Greetings, all. Yeah, people are early, and I've decided to just get started while people were here. Faustian says, hello. Hello, everyone, says Faustian. He's looking to make a deal. He's got the double key symbol. The key is a symbol of Hades back in the old times. I was going to work with Hades for a little while because I played the damn game Hades and it got me all into the, that underworld stuff for a little minute. And, I ended up not doing it like I was going to do. I felt like I didn't need to, but yeah, some potent stuff. Very interesting. Yeah. Yep. Christian's here. Christian Heinekainen. I was going to say that. Heinekainen. Time for another episode. Thank you, Christian. Kat Jones, what's up? Usually I only see you in the Discord. Just kidding. Kat's awesome. She's been a longtime friend and, all kinds of stuff. She's been on an interesting journey in her life, and I hope she's doing good. And she's a good person. We've been seeing her on the Discord a bunch. Jay Baldea, hail and well met, young Jay. Let's see. Hardcore Zombie, I see something in the smoke. I bet you do. Probably the smoke from Canada. Yeah, so they're even affecting Cat down in North Carolina with the smoke. That's not good. Gogo says, hey legend, how you doing, DH? Hello to yourself, Gogo. Alexander C says, yo. Tommy Carson, excuse me, I do that one, so I'm not good at reading names. You ever notice that? DH brother, Raquel, howdy. Yes, what's up, Tommy Carson? So as the viewership ticks into the double and hopefully we'll get up and around the 30s. It's nice to see everybody. I was having thoughts today. Anybody's on the Discord knows, like I occasionally put stuff in different channels, like the Bitch and Moan channel. Today was one of those days where, I was feeling it today when it came to just probably the same stuff all of you guys, feel in your own ways, just about your own things. But it was one of the most difficult things that sort of led to some burnout for me, is that my method, my madness, my passion, my ways, if you will. They're different, obviously. Different isn't always successful or better, but they're different. I don't like superstition. I cannot fucking stand superstition. Superstition, when I say I can't stand it, I don't mean I don't enjoy the superficial quality of it. Superstition's cool, some of it, you know, like it's interesting, it's fascinating. But what do I mean by superstition? The average person today who's interested in the subjects of magic, witchcraft, spirituality, non-duality, new agery stuff, they don't really seek an understanding of the fundamental principles. They don't seek an understanding of philosophy. They don't seek an understanding of even the cultural essence from whence their interests come. For them, it is basically magic and spirituality and all of this stuff are basically Hollywood memes. And it's very frustrating. Think of it like this. And I'm not into the woke stuff, you know this. But think of it like this. Imagine being someone from a culture, say Japanese, and you come to America and everybody thinks you're a samurai. Everybody thinks that you are a martial artist. Everybody thinks that you love anime, right? Or by the same token, go back to like the 80s or something and go to Japan as an American and they all think you're cowboys. It's a little similar to that. Because a lot of people, their only real understanding of these subjects comes from entertainment. It doesn't come from the reality. And unfortunately, a large portion of that stems especially from the New Age district, you know, shall we say, the New Age culture. And the New Age culture is, well, it's got good points for sure, and it's got bad points for sure. The bad points, unfortunately, tend to overwhelm the good, especially these days. So the good parts about the New Age movement is that they tend to gravitate towards similar spiritual foundations that I'm interested in. Non-duality being a very big one, Hinduism being another big one. You'll notice that in New Age spirituality, it's really like a westernization or an adaptation of those things, which there's nothing wrong with. You know, people get this thing in their head too, like those things have to remain culturally pure or something, and that's not how spirituality works. It's not how it's supposed to work. It's like a science almost. It's not science, but it's like a science in that it should be open for everybody to explore and express. It's an art form that has, you know, philosophy in it. The problem though, again, is that too many people do not actually understand. They don't have actual gnosis. They don't have a mystical experience. They haven't achieved any kind of real awakening to the higher truth. This is very easily self-evidenced by those people who take literally that which is meant to be metaphor. So you have people who take literally, for example, the 5 koshas. Now, the 5 koshas, for those who don't know, those are the 5 sheaths of your embodiment, of your incarnation. And the 5 sheaths are meant not to be taken literally. They are metaphors. When I say they are metaphors, that doesn't mean they don't represent something of significance. What I mean is they are metaphors that shouldn't be taken too literally. So, for example, we get into a lot of trouble when we reach, you know, pranamaya, the energy body. There is this insistence by people that pranamaya means a literal form of magical energy, that if you can just harness it just right, you can do anything. Like if I could take prana, charge my hand with it, I can send it at a bird and kill the bird. You know, Hollywood shit. That's a gross misunderstanding of what prana is. For example, prana is a manifestation in consciousness, but it is not a real energy. There is no such thing as a real energy or a real body or a real anything other than consciousness is the only thing that is real. Everything else is a manifestation of consciousness. Now, that doesn't mean that those manifestations don't carry weight or consequence, because they represent something in consciousness. But consciousness isn't structured. It does not have energy moving around in it. That is to say, consciousness is not energy. Energy is something which consciousness witnesses within itself. That energy is not a thing. It's an illusory representation, like an icon on your desktop. In consciousness is the essence of what energy is, but that essence, you see, we as incarnate beings live in a world of space and time are both illusory. Without both space and time being real, energy, as we are commonly taught it as a subject, you know, like in earth science or something, energy is not what we think. If there is no time, there can't be change. Time is an illusion. There is an appearance of change. There's an illusion of change, an illusion of time. But consciousness is timeless. It does not change. Nothing moves in consciousness, really. It just appears to move. There's an appearance of change. This is paradoxical as fuck, and people don't wrap their brains around it very easily because it's so alien to our experience to think that way. We see things moving around, so we think things move. But there's two ways that you can have something appear to move. Actually, there's three ways. One, the thing can move. Two, the perspective can change. To my eyes, it looks like my finger's moving just the same as this. So that's the two physical ways. But there's yet another way. Close your eyes and imagine someone bouncing a ball. Is anything moving? Let's try it together. Everybody close your eyes and just listen to me. Close your eyes and imagine someone bouncing a ball. Is something moving? Be honest, is something moving? No, there's nothing moving. Nothing is moving at all when you imagine someone bouncing a ball, because there is no ball. There's nothing to move. There's just an appearance of movement. There's a manifestation of movement, not an actual movement. So the mind can animate things, make them appear to move, but they don't. Consciousness is manifesting mind, and mind is manifesting all of this. Think of it like a Russian nesting doll. And inside that Russian nesting doll is nothing. And now you're starting to understand the 5 koshas. The 5 koshas are a sequence like Russian nesting dolls, which contain nothing. When we say nothing, we don't mean literal lack of being or lack of existence, nothing. We're describing something that is not a thing. It is thinglessness. It is formless. It is equivalent to space, but space is still in existence. And it's not even equivalent to space. It's just that we would think of it like space. We're talking about consciousness. Consciousness has no features of its own. That is to say, it doesn't look like anything. It isn't made of anything. Consciousness is exactly like empty space in that regard. Yet within that empty space is the manifestation of all things, within that emptiness of consciousness. You're not looking at things right now. You're looking at consciousness taking the appearance of things. This goes beyond even idealism. You have materialism, you have idealism, and you have non-dualism. Non-dualism is it's far more subtle than idealism is. Materialism's concrete and hard, and it's dead ass wrong. Idealism is a little better because it's subtler. It treats material as a precipitation of idea. In other words, your idea of this is why it seems real. In the idealist mind, everything is a thought form given substance. Ooh, excuse me. Bless me. To the non-dualist, both are just manifestations. They're both illusory. But that doesn't mean that those illusions don't have a source in consciousness. That doesn't mean, just because consciousness doesn't have a structure, just because consciousness has no actual substance, doesn't mean that it does not contain the inspiration for all things which manifest. This isn't just some random thing that's happening. That which you are witnessing is the play of consciousness, the play of Brahman. It's the game. It's intentional. There is will. From our perspective, we would call it will. Of course, from consciousness, this is just a word, will. Okay, you can't say consciousness has will. If I say that, it is a concession to language. Will implies that there is a subject and object. Will is a dualistic concept. There has to be a one to will and one to be willed upon, if you will. But from our little pitiful limited perspective, we would say the divine, there is will, but it's really freedom. It's sort of the same thing. When there is no other will to be in competition with, there's only freedom, isn't there? And we're not talking about freedom where the opposite is slavery or something. We're talking about there's no limit. There's no limit to what can manifest. No limit whatsoever. So why does anything manifest? Well, actually, I've got news for you. Everything manifests. Everything. This is a thing that people get stuck on very easily. They think that the only thing that manifests is the here and now. They still think in a dualistic, materialistic way. They think that they're looking out of themselves with their eyes into a universe. You're not. There's no universe out there. There's no eyes in here. All possible, no, scratch that. All things, all manifests. There is no limit to what manifests, and it's manifesting always because time is an illusion. There is no before and after. There is no Big Bang that happened 13 billion years ago. The Big Bang is now too. Even if you think about it with time, we're still in the middle of the Big Bang. It's still banging. It just, it's fading now. Think of like a firecracker going off. You have that big boop, and then it fades away. We're like in the early stage of that explode. Like we're on the edge of the early stage of that explosion. But take time away. There's no Big Bang of 14 billion years ago. There's only Big Bang. And that Big Bang is always. There's no 5 years ago when you had the car accident. There's always a car accident. Consciousness manifests these things in a way that appears like time. But the essence, the divine essence, the divine does not have structure, like I said, but consciousness has essence. But that essence is it's incomprehensible. There's no form to it. There's no structure to it. There's no shape. It is formless because it is all. Here's one of the, let me cut myself off here. Let me take a break for a second. Here's a problem with the non-dual teaching, as people like I are often doing it. I'm going to criticize myself a little bit. We make a lot of positive assertions about consciousness. I'll say consciousness is limitless, it's boundless, and it's this and that. And you're hearing these words, which are negation words: formless, boundless, timeless. So you're thinking, okay, so it has no time, and that's what I've been saying. It has no time, it has no form, etc. But those are positive statements about it. There is nothing you can say about it as a positive assertion. So if I say it is formless, I just made a positive assertion, like that's what it is. It's formless. No. The reason that I pound that idea, I bang that drum so hard, is because I'm trying to get you to turn away. I'm trying to get you to turn away from this material, substantive thinking. I'm trying to turn you away from thinking that consciousness is a multiverse, for example. Consciousness can look like a multiverse to itself. Consciousness can manifest a multiverse, of course. And the entire multiverse would be manifested always, at all times, in a timeless way. This is why the better teachers, instead of trying to tell you what it is, they point at it so that you go find it, and then you don't need to ask these questions. You don't have to worry about what it's made of. Most people struggle even with the first step, which is recognizing that consciousness is what they are and not their thoughts of themselves and the appearance of this body and all that. That's the hardest thing for a lot of people. That first step is a doozy, yet it's the most obvious thing. It really is the most obvious thing. It's like someone wearing a mask, looking through the eye holes and thinking they're the mask. It would be like playing a VR video game and forgetting you're playing a game and thinking that you're the avatar that you're controlling in the game world. But you're not that. You are that which witnesses all of it. And Ajna's right to point out, don't evade contradiction. I've often said, anybody who has a good memory will know, One of the things I used to say a lot, and I still say it, but I just don't say it as much these days on my streams, is paradox is key. If you're not, if paradox, when you hit a paradox, you've hit the truth, capital T. I don't mean every paradox is the truth. I'm saying when it comes to these questions of the divine, when you reach a paradox, you're there. That's when you have the opportunity to click, because it's incomprehensible to the mind. The paradox is the point. If you're not experiencing a paradox, what makes a paradox? A paradox is always non-dual. That's sort of what gets the paradox going. Duality doesn't like paradox. It likes A and B, 1 and 2, yes and no. You get a choice and one of them's real and one is not. Or you get two choices and they're both real, but you can't have both at the same time or whatever. Paradoxes can be both. Paradoxes can be every contradiction there is, all at once. When I was very young, the first channeling event, the first thing that I ever experienced that was out of this world, the thing that spoke through me, shall we say, told a story, and it began with a story. Again, I was 13. It told a story that it described in a boundless void in which there was a singularity of light or energy or being, which was radiating all of this, and there was a swirling maelstrom of just emanated energy and being just coming out of it, and it looked like a just almost like a black hole or something, right? And all these little sparks were coming off of that central singularity. And I knew that each spark, this is the description, but I also saw it, and each spark was a soul exploring this. And this was the multiverse. This was all existence. This was the story that was told through me as the cosmology of reality. Fast forward 30 years, and I start learning about Neoplatonism and Gnosticism. Almost word for word, the same story. And it would interest you to know that although non-dualism, like Advaita Vedanta specifically, doesn't have that cosmology, in the Hindu tradition in general, and even in Advaita, the two, there is a parallel. Like Neoplatonism and Advaita actually agree on a lot. If you ever compare what they claim, yes, you can tell the difference between the Western left-minded way of thinking about things and the Eastern right-minded way of thinking about things. The Hindu one is superior, in my opinion, completely superior. It is both simpler, it's more direct, it's more rational. Even the more superstitious metaphors are more rational. They're more practical. But you cannot look at Neoplatonism or Hermetics or any of those and say that they don't echo many of the same ideas. In fact, like I said, Neoplatonism and Advaita Vedanta, or just, non-duality in general, they are fairly, they would agree about a lot. If you got, Plotinus to sit down with Shankaracharya and they just talked, I think that would be an incredible conversation. And if I remember correctly, they were a little coterminous in time. I forget exactly when when Plotinus lived versus when Shankara lived, but they would have, I think, had a lot. They would have opened each other's eyes a lot. I think they would have had a lot of really productive things to say to each other. I think they both would have really enjoyed each other's ideas. And yes, Ajna, don't forget, Kabbalah, although it's far more ancient, the Kabbalah that we know today obviously has Neoplatonic and Platonic influence, and among other things. I am not an expert in that subject. I am barely a newbie at it. Like, I've read a book, you know. My understanding of it is decent because I apply a non-dual mentality to it. In other words, I don't need to climb the tree to reach Ein Sof. I've already got, you know, that. I've already through the non-dual, whether you want to call it Neo-Advaita or Advaita Vedanta or whatever, I've already got that. Like, I've already climbed to the mountain and seen the horizon. I already know what I don't know and what I can't know in this form. I get it. And that means I can look back at Kabbalah and go, oh, that's what that was supposed to mean. Good, excellent. I get it. It's an excellent map of consciousness. So is Neoplatonism. So is Taoism. So is Hermeticism. They're all excellent metaphors, maps, thought forms, constructs, egregores of consciousness. They're all very good. The best of them, though, don't tell you what it is. It tells you where to look to find it. It can tell you it's consciousness, sure, that's not the problem. But what I mean is, the problem with Kabbalah and the problem with Neoplatonism is they create a structured map, and everyone confuses the map for the territory. That's why I like just the direct approach of non-duality. And if you need to supplement with various techniques, you do. So let's get back to the 5 koshas, as I was bringing up earlier, because I was complaining about the New Age movement and all of this. Those things are meant to be used multiple ways, yes, but their primary use is to recognize layers of well, we'll call them veils. We'll call them veils of ignorance, because that's close to what they're sort of meant to be thought of. Think of it like imagine a bright light, and you have different silk scarves that you're placing over the light, and maybe you poke a little pinhole in them, right? You can poke a pinhole in it so you can just glimpse the light. Those veils color the light. They limit your perception of it. So each veil, each kosha is a veil. It's called a sheath. That's what the word kosha means. And each of these sheaths are not positive things that exist. They are negative things. They're like holes. They're veilings with like a hole that you can see through a little bit. So each one of those koshas should not, it's not that you can't make a science out of them. It's not that you can't treat prana as, you know, the manifestation of prana in your body. You can't, it's not that you can't utilize that for things. It's not that you can't feel it, and it's not that you can't use it in magic, etc., etc., etc. Providing you recognize that those are thought forms, they're not things. They're not things that exist in a positive way. They are unthings. Yes, Ajna, exactly. The koshas describe an Atman, the non-Atman. Atman means basically consciousness, soul. So does Brahman, though. It all means the same thing. Well, sort of. They're equated in Advaita. That's the point. Right. They describe what you're not. They're not real, though. Now, that doesn't mean, though, one of the bones that I pick slightly with regular pure Advaita, and I'm not even sure it really is a bone to pick with Advaita, I think it's just with the way it's taught, is Advaita makes it sound like these things just randomly pop into, like there's no essence that they represent. I disagree with this. I firmly agree that consciousness is formless, it is boundless, it is all these contradictions. It is all of these paradoxes. It, again, if you've ever transcended enough and you've gotten to just the various deepest states, you know that it doesn't look like anything, doesn't feel like anything. It is just a serene bliss. There is no, even the bliss is, it's not like a feel-good thing. It's just peace. The hardest thing in the world is to reach that and remain consciously aware of it. You go there every night when you sleep. Every night you go, lights out, bang, you hit that state, and it's like a blink of the eye, and next thing you know, you're dreaming and you wake up. But you know you were there. You have a feeling that you were there. You have an intuition that you were there, not just because you woke up today, so you must be there. There's this intuitive, I existed in that moment. The mistake, though, is to think that what we're seeing is literally just without inspiration. That is a false thinking. The thing is, what's inspiring it is consciousness itself. It is formless, yet within that formlessness is an essence, and that essence is boundless. And if you were to somehow manifest that essence all at once, it would look like a multiverse in a timeless, static, bing, multiverse, infinite, boundless multiverse, beyond anything you can imagine. Not just what you think could exist, but even things that you couldn't imagine existing manifest. This is another paradox, isn't it? The divine is formless, it's void, it's nothing, and yet there's an essence which inspires this dream to being. One of the metaphors I like is a dream. The reason I like the dream metaphor so much is because think about all of your dreams you've ever had. Have you noticed that they all represent, or can be said to represent, something about you or about your life? In other words, we don't just dream random dreams of things we've never seen before. Sure, we'll cobble together things into new forms and it'll look new, but if you go to sleep tonight and you dream about a werewolf chasing you through a dark, scary forest, that werewolf is inspired into your mind by something. Maybe it's the boss you have at work that's a complete asshole and is gunning for your job and trying to get you fired. So that werewolf was inspired by something real. But the werewolf is not real. The forest maybe represents your job. So when we're talking about this dreamlike manifestation, this is like a figment of a dream. That figment of a dream must have an origin. It can't just be poof. But it also could be. It's just, there must be an inspirational essence. This is almost like Plato's theory of forms, sort of taken out of the Platonic ideas and introduced into the Advaita idea. And I have to tell you, there's more than one type of non-duality in Hinduism. You have Vishvadvaita, I can't even pronounce it. Ajna, how do you pronounce Vishvadvaita? Qualified non-dualism, which proposes that there are distinct forms, but there's no separation. It's a little bit different. They take materiality a little bit more seriously. I'm not saying I am that either. Just saying that there are other interpretations that are Advaitin interpretations. That's the beauty of Advaita in a lot of ways, is that anything we say about it in a positive way, consciousness is only this, consciousness has no form, no substance, no this, no that, bang, bang, bang. You're making positive assertions about something which is incomprehensible. That's wrong. That is technically contradictory to the point that Advaitins always make. They make a very strong point of this. You cannot know or have comprehension of that, but you are that. You can know that, but not in an intellectual way. You can know it in the same way that you can know a sunset without ever hearing about it. You can just be like, boop, I see a sunset. You can know it directly, but you can't comprehend it with the intellect. You can't make a word for it. You can't make a logic for it. Because all those things are binary. They're always dualistic. They always have either or qualities. The point of saying the divine is boundless, limitless, infinite, can be all things, can be no things. The point is that in that incomprehensible existence, all things manifest. Formlessness manifests. Even formlessness manifests. This is why all of these traditions generally just point you at consciousness and help you understand the non-dual nature of it. And for most people, that's enough. Unless they have questions that counter what they're being taught. So for example, if someone comes to me, they're going to be like, Thorne, I'm okay with consciousness. I get that I am not this, I am consciousness witnessing this. Got that. But where's this non-duality part come in? Because if that's true, why don't I have a conscious experience of other people being those people? If non-duality is true, why don't I not see the world through their eyes? Well, the easy answer that's often given is avidya, ignorance, maya. Because in Advaita, avidya and maya are kind of the same thing. They're a veiling, they're an ignorance. When we say ignorance, we don't mean just like stupidness. We're talking about ignorance. We're talking about the word ignore. We're ignoring something to the point of forgetfulness. We're ignoring something until we lose conscious awareness. This is another thing, by the way. I know I'm going all over the place. Hopefully this is helpful to you guys. I don't know if you guys study these subjects. When you encounter Advaitin teachings, especially Neo-Advaitin teachings, you're told it is consciousness. The divine is consciousness. And our terminology for consciousness, that immediately makes you think, well, what about when I'm not conscious of something? Because we use the word in different ways. Consciousness is awareness, and it is also being conscious. But awareness, you don't have to be conscious of awareness for you to still be consciousness. Awareness is consciousness. Consciousness is awareness, and then there is conscious awareness. So there are things you can be conscious of. I got to be careful with my language here because I'm saying things, so I'm immediately doing a dualistic thing. You can be conscious of XYZ, but you're always aware of everything, even if you're not conscious of it. And that's why I like to use the analogy of when you're sleeping, you're not aware of your body, but if I poured a bucket of water on your body, what would happen? You'd wake up. How could that be if you were not aware of the bucket of water? So you can be aware without being conscious of that awareness. You are always conscious. You are always consciousness, but you do not always have conscious awareness of specific manifestation. You do not always have conscious awareness of consciousness in its totality. Avidya is a veiling. It is a veiling of a portion of consciousness, so you are not conscious of it, but you're still aware of it. Awareness never stops. It never goes away. You just might not have conscious mental ideation of it. That's another key. Where there is no mentation, that means that there is no objectification of ideas or what you witness. If you're mindless, so for example, maybe you're a Zen Buddhist and you're doing your things and you hit Satori, that is I'm going to hesitate to say mindless, but that is a mindless state of just pure awareness. Some people call it no mind. Now, to be clear, there's still mind, but there's no mentation going on. There's no carving up of experience and turning it into ideas and objects. It's like stripping away all of the heads-up interface, heads-up display that our mind projects that gives things structure. If you've ever read, now I've done it many times, but it's hard to describe. Imagine taking like a video of something and just turning the blur all the way up. So it's just a blurry thing and you don't differentiate, you don't idolize, you don't objectify anything. You're just sitting there with experience happening and you don't label any thought, you don't label any experience. It just arises and falls like waves and you don't even notice the individual waves. It's just a flow and it just fades and it's just a blur. It's a timeless blur, but you're still conscious of this. That's why that's a fun that type of meditation. To me, you can go much deeper. You can go to a point where you lose this completely. It's like being in a sensory deprivation tank, yet you still exist in some way. Not as an ego, just as a presence. There's just a presence of consciousness. It again, indescribable stuff. So this is where a lot of confusion comes in, because the New Age people get a hold of this stuff and they turn it into superstition and mythology, and they literalize things that are not meant to be literal. They're all meant to be fingers pointing at something you can't comprehend. So people will ask you, Thorne, if we're all consciousness, why do I not know what other people are thinking and feeling? If I am all consciousness and all consciousness is all there is, why do I not have awareness of that? And my answer is to remind them there are many things that you are aware of, but not consciously aware of. And there are many things that you were conscious of, but are no longer conscious of. One of the best ones, I think it's Rupert Spear. I don't know if he originated this argument, but he makes a great argument. And I've used it many times to people like that. And they'll say, okay, so you don't know what I'm thinking right now, right? And they'll say, no, I don't. So that proves we're two separate beings, right? Not so fast. Think back 3 years ago at this exact same moment. What were you doing, thinking, and feeling at that exact moment? Well, the answer is always going to be, I don't know. And if anybody does know, that's all right. Go play the lotto. You just hit the one in a gazillion. No one knows what they did 3 years ago at the exact same moment. Okay, no one knows what they were experiencing. They don't have any memory of it at all. And then just ask the person, do you doubt that you were conscious 3 years ago at this exact moment? Now, of course, I'm playing a little bit of a trick here because time's an illusion, but we'll just stick with it. 3 years ago, at this exact moment, were you or were you not conscious of that? Was that not you? Well, of course it was. Of course consciousness was there in that moment. You just don't remember it. So how do you know for sure that you're not me and just don't remember it? Are you aware of everything going on in your body? Do you doubt that you're your body? Again, playing into the illusion a little bit. Those of us who know the body is an illusion, okay? We know. But those who don't, if you say to somebody, so for you, your ego is rooted in what? It is rooted in sensation, in ideation, but really it's rooted in a sense of conflict, self and other, borders, boundaries, cause and effect, and all that shit. So the 5 koshas are that. They are boundary layers between what you feel is you and what you feel is not you. That's all it is. Your food body, the Annamaya kosha, is not a positive structure. It's not a positive thing. It does not exist. One reason we say this isn't one of the teachings is that anything that is impermanent is not real. Impermanence itself is a part of reality. But impermanence, the things that are impermanent, those things that arise and disappear, are not real. Your body is not a static, permanent thing. It rises and it falls. It's constantly in flux. It's constantly changing. It's ever changing. Anything that appears to change, or that is, I should say, anything that is changing is an appearance. It's an illusion. It's like a mirage. There's no ocean there. It's just air wiggling around. This isn't a body. It's just a thing. It is, here's language fucking me over again. This is not a body. This is a thought form which has convincing sensory things going on, and you are isolating it because of where you draw the boundary between what you can feel and what you can't. You think to yourself, I am this body, and I know I'm this body because I don't feel that wall over there. I am this body and not that body because I don't know what that person's feeling. But the New Agers take this to be assertively real. So, for example, a New Age argument is everything is interconnected. No, because that, I don't want to play semantics, but I'm gonna, because they don't realize what they're saying semantically is incorrect. Interconnection is like this. This is an interconnection. My hands are interconnected, but they're still 2 separate hands, according to the materialist perspective. They're 2 separate things that are interconnected. No. So the New Ager thinks that the non-dual reality is a big tapestry that's interconnected together. No. If you were going to call it a tapestry, it would be a tapestry woven from one thread that's going back and forth on itself over and over, so it looks like separate things. That's the metaphor you're looking for, if you're going to go with that. It looks like separate threads because you don't see where the threads are connected. It's one thread continuously. There's garments you can buy that are like, I forget what it is. What is it? Spandex or something. It's just one thread that's been woven into itself, and it looks, like a bunch of individual threads that are all interconnected. It's but one thread. And they think that, like I said before, you could charge your hand with prana and shoot it at a canary and it'll fall over dead, or you could heal it or whatever. They get superstitious. I cannot fucking stand superstition. But Thorne, I thought you were a magician. Hold up. Magic and sorcery, which I sort of they're the same, but they're separate things. It's like, I don't know, astronomy and cosmology, right? They go together, but they're not quite the same thing. Magic is, to me, focused on transcendence, ascension, theurgy with spirits and spiritual energies. And ultimately, it's always about the ultimate goal of magic is not to cause things to happen, but to become divinity, to recognize your divinity. That's the point of magic. Sorcery, if we take the word going back in history, it means sortiarius or sortiari. It meant someone who drew lots, like fortune telling. And a sorcerer was someone who would quite literally influence fate by the drawing and manipulation of lots. It was the person you'd go to when you wanted to have good fortune on, say, your business venture. So a sorcerer would do their thing and fate would be shifted in your favor. That's sorcery. Now, both of those practices, especially sorcery, when practiced just that way, that's an ego trap. Because you get the impression like you're causing things to happen. Like the ego's causing it. Like one shadow making another shadow do something. But the proper approach to magic and sorcery should always be about transcendence, achieving realization of your true self, and then integrating that into your incarnate life so that this incarnate life is free. It's no longer a thing. Like, it's like taking the VR helmet off for a second and going, oh, that wasn't real? Oh, let's go back to playing then. That's what it does. When you have a complete non-dual realization, it's literally like waking up from the Matrix, realizing it's not real, and jumping back in and exploring this simulation for fun. You don't take it quite so seriously. Yeah, you still play the game. You still try to win the game the way you want to win it, but it's no longer taken quite so seriously. You're like, I don't care if I lose this life. It's just a life. I shouldn't say I don't care. It's like, I don't want to die here right now. I'm trying to go for what do they call it? An iron run or something in a game where you don't die. I'm going for that marathon run where I don't die. Fair enough. But if I do, besides the existential, when it happens, there's no lingering existential dread. I don't sit here up all night going, I'm going to die someday. Unfazed by that. If there's nothing, I won't know. And if there's something, I can't wait to see it. There's nothing to fear whatsoever. I will say that I actually have a slight aversion to some of these ideas like the koshas and things, because there is such a risk when you're learning about them to try to identify with them. And that's the point. These are the things you're identifying with. You identify with your body. You identify with the energy of your body. You identify with the thought form of your body. You identify with your ability to reason. You identify with the subtle, blissful, subconscious existence. You identify with all of those things, but they're all illusions. They're not real. They're avatars in a video game. They're graphics. This is why I guess in some ways we're really lucky to live in the modern era, because this VR stuff, this computer, all of this virtual shit really does very effectively demonstrate to us that reality is like a dream. It is like a VR simulation. You even have people who believe we live in a literal simulation. No, we live in a non-dual simulation. It's a spiritual simulation. It's not a computer in a higher dimension, and we're not programs running in a computer. That's bullshit. Anybody who thinks that doesn't understand what consciousness is. Consciousness is a difficult subject. I get it. Like I've got, hey, what's up, Solar? I haven't been noticing people in the chat. Good morning and good evening, everyone, by the way. Let me finish my thought. So, for example, I want to be a little bit tactful here, because in case there's people here who believe this, or there's people who I enjoy talking to who might be offended if I attack what they believe. Let me make this clear. I'm not attacking them for believing it, but I am going to attack the belief. There's different versions of the left-hand path. Most of you guys know this. The version that I ascribe to is, before I even knew what it was, and this is another trait of mine, I figure things out and I understand things, then I learn about them and I go, fuck, I basically reinvented the wheel with what I think. But that's just me patting myself on the back. The type of left-hand path that I'm on is a path where you do not reject anything about divinity and how it manifests. It's sort of like the radical acceptance technique that some spiritual people practice, except I'm fixated on the dark side that people avoid and are scared of. The taboos, the sins, the dark side of your own ego and intellect. I don't run from that. I want to integrate that. I want to bring it into the light, and I want to see it for what it is, and I want to approach it with compassion, and I want to embrace it, and then see if I can integrate that back into myself, because it's all divine. There is nothing that is not divine. There is nothing that is not God. There is nothing that is not consciousness. I don't care how you like to describe it. There is nothing that is not that. Or shall we say a manifestation of that? That's a better way to put it. Because we get into trouble when we say, if I say this is God, and then, and then 1 second later go, this doesn't exist as this is an illusion. So you're saying God's an illusion? No, what I'm saying is, God is all there is. Consciousness is all there is. And anything else is a manifestation of it, an illusory manifestation of it. So I'm interested in looking into those dark spaces of manifestation. I'm looking into the dark part of Maya, the part that is really hidden and hard to see. My goal of left-hand path is not to become God. It's to recognize divinity in all things, including myself, to the point where I recognize consciousness, divinity as what I am. And it's very taboo to say you're enlightened and all this shit. That realization, once you have the realization, but it can deepen. Just a couple weeks ago, mine deepened substantially. I had just a big click. The intellect clicked, and then gnosis happened. Because usually what happens is the intellect realizes something intellectually. The intellect forms some argument or something, or debunks some reason why it couldn't be true or whatever. You have a thought, which then triggers a stepping back, a detachment, a disassociation with all of these koshas. You have almost like Alfred Hitchcock's little zoom effect. You have like it doesn't really look like that, but it feels like this pulling back. It feels like a pulling back. No, that's not right, but it's the best I can do. It feels like a pulling away from the illusion, and now there's a complete awareness of something you weren't aware of before, and it doesn't go away, it stays there. That's how you know you got a good one, because when you get a really good realization, it sticks. Not as a thought, well, you get thoughts about it, but it's not an intellectual realization, it's a presence, it's It's like, okay, imagine you grew up with a numb arm because you got a pinched nerve or someone injected something, and then one day it wears off and you suddenly feel it. A good non-dual realization or a deepening of it is a little bit like that. Not exactly that, because it's not a feeling, but it's like that. It's like suddenly realizing you have a limb you didn't know you had. The recent one was just taking the thoughts. Consciousness doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't move, but everything that appears to move is within consciousness. It was like, I was thinking to myself, okay, when I travel from my house to work, is consciousness going from my house to work? No! Consciousness does not move. Home and work appear to move in consciousness. Consciousness is always at the 0 point. Consciousness never moves. It doesn't go anywhere. Now, this sounds trivial. Some people who are on the non-dual path will sit there and go, okay, I knew that. That's been taught to me. I've heard that before. I get it. Yes, you've heard it. You may have intellectually processed it. You may parrot it in your brain, but did you truly gnostically know it? Did it really just, oh. Did that happen? Well, that happened to me the other day. And I in every moment of my life now, there is this mindful realization, and it comes and it goes, to be fair. I'm not constantly realizing it. The mind clouds it occasionally, and then it steps out of the way and I have it back. But there is this almost constant awareness that this is like a movie screen. I'm not going anywhere. It just looks like it. It feels like it, but I'm not. And when I had this realization, it reminded me of that Islamic saying, the mountains came to Muhammad. I'm not sure if it's anything like what I'm describing. I'm probably taking that out of context, but immediately it popped into my head. I get it. The mountains came to Muhammad. So when I travel to work, no, work comes to me. Work appears in consciousness, and it feels like I went there, but I didn't. Y'all talking about Charles Manson. You mean that poor guy who was a little crazy, who got fucked over by the government and turned into a fall guy for various things? And yeah, I don't know much about him. I know Six Hexenhammer was into him. But yeah. So why do I harp on this so much? Well, that's my point. All of these people, especially in this new age, occultism and all that, so many of them have absolutely no fucking clue they all sound like flat earth maniacs to me. And this is one reason why I haven't been quite so active as a creator, except for live streams and things, because I'm sort of looking at this like it's my own fault. But I'm sort of looking at this like all of these people follow me because they think that I'm saying their thoughts. They think that I am saying what they believe. Because when I first emerged on the scene, My realization of non-duality had occurred, but it wasn't as deep as it is now. And my interests were in the more edgy occult things at the time when I came onto the YouTube scene. That was my focus of study. I wanted to know more about Goetia. I wanted to know about demonolatry. And so when I began, well, I delved a lot into the spooky woo because it's fun. Into the superstitions. I wanted to explore those a little bit to see which ones maybe held merit and which ones didn't. So I built up a following of mostly superstitious people. Which was fine for a while because I figured, hey, I can take these superstitious people and I can feed them the non-dual truth through that metaphor. And for a while I did. And it was helpful to a lot of people. But now I still get DMs from people, and I don't want to be specific because I don't want to be insulting to someone. But I'll get DMs, just they want the Hollywood special effects magic. They don't want the reality of magic. They want the Hollywood special effects version of sorcery, not the reality of sorcery. They want the new age, feel-good, Pollyanna bullshit side of spirituality. They don't want the hard-hitting reality. People do not know how hard it is to relate to other people. Like, they think they know how hard it is to relate to people now. Imagine when you realize that there are no people. Imagine when you realize that your wife is a phantom of your mind. Consciousness is there. You can love this thing, this image, sure. But there is no objective person there. It's an idea in your mind. And that idea is inspired by something. It's not solipsism. There is a person there, if you will, but that person isn't the reality. The person is a manifestation of consciousness. I'm loving a part of myself when I love my wife. I'm loving another part of the dream that I'm dreaming. There's the dream avatar that I'm in here, and there's the dream avatar that I'm in over there, and they love each other. I'm dreaming two people love each other, and I'm playing both behind the scenes. When I look into my wife's eyes, I'm looking into my own eyes through a different body. And both are illusory bodies. Neither one of them is what they appear. And they are metaphors. They are symbols of something real. It is really hard to relate to this once that becomes your foundational view of things. Once it becomes your foundation of how you see the world, when someone's sitting there talking to you about sports ball or something, you're just like, yeah, okay. Even this political shit that I'm always hung up on, like that's a fixate, that's an attachment of mine. That doesn't mean it's not important, by the way. See, people get this misunderstanding, like to be non-attached means you don't care. No, you still fucking care. Like I said before, when you take the headset off from your VR video game and you realize that the video game's not real, that doesn't mean you don't care what happens in the video game. It just means you no longer feel like that's you that it's happening to. But an attachment is you still feel like it's happening to you. Means you haven't quite got it yet. In a way, it almost feels like, and this is the height of arrogance and ego here, it almost feels like everything happening in the world that's driving me crazy is happening just for me. Just to get me to let go of it, to let go or be dragged. I'm watching the world go insane, and I know it's wrong, and it is in my nature to rebel against it, because one of the archetypes that's primary in my formation as a soul, as a psyche, is the archetype of the rebel, but also the sage. The sage is coming. The rebel is what I was. The sage is what I will be. Probably both. But the rebel is what I began as. So damn it, it's in my fucking nature to rebel. But that rebellion, if you're attached to it, just causes suffering and more attachment and more ego. And as I have been managing to start letting go of it more, I'm still aware of it, of course. I'm still paying attention to it. I'm still fighting the good fight. And that's the point. Attachment doesn't mean, I mean, when you're not attached to it, doesn't mean you don't deal with it anymore. Being non-attached means you can literally walk right into it. It's sort of like immersion therapy, like you have a fear of spiders. Non-attachment is like you have a fear of spiders, and now you can walk into the spider webs, and it won't. You still jump, you're still scared, but you're not scared in that deep way that you were before. You're still like, oh no, I don't want spiders on me, but you're not like, ah, you know? Or it's sort of like you think a spider's on you, but it's not. It's non-attachment's a little bit like that too. Jay Baldale. I'm listening to myself rant to this group every Thursday. Yes, yeah. You have no idea how right you are. Imagine what it's like for me. I'm sorry to read all that, Order of the Black Dragon. It sucks. I mean, depending upon your age and things. Ugh. I mean, if you're of age, if it's really that bad, you know, get out, you know. I'm sure you know that. It's not really helpful advice. It's kind of like obvious. Believe me, I get it. I do get it. There's things that I don't talk about because, you know, people listen. But I get it. I definitely get it. All right, let me respond to some questions and comments, but yeah, Hashna's talking about some stuff I don't know. Speaking of the anti-cosmic people, like that's what I was getting at. There is another version of the left-hand path where they're like, oh, I want to separate from God and become my own God and blah, 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 blah. And to me, that's just like, so you want to be an NPC with no consciousness? Is that what you're saying? You like, you don't want consciousness anymore? You just want to be an ego? That sounds like one hell of an ego trip, man. Of course, that's the westernized left-hand path. I think the Eastern's a little different. So let me get to some of the questions. Some people were asking questions earlier. Mystic says, what's your advice for people just getting started in magic? Where to start? You're not going to like this if you're like 90% of the people who buy these books. Do not start with practical magic stuff. At least not if you really want to master this shit. If you just want to dabble, just go buy a book of spells and do what it says. Treat it like a cookbook. Have a lot of disappointment, or maybe have a weird, miraculous experience. And when you're over and done, you won't have learned anything. You'll have learned how to cook a new cake. No. My advice for the beginner is to focus on studying mystical teachings. And when I say focus on mystical teachings, do them all or most of them, at least the big ones. The beauty of the modern era is you have access to a lot of different mystical traditions. The very best of them, I personally talk about every video, every stream. For me, the advantage goes to Indian metaphysics, Indian philosophy, Advaita, and the various offshoots of Advaita. For me, that is the best place to start, because you will absolutely, if you follow a decent teacher or guru, or watch my videos and get clicked, you get something I say clicks, you can have a non-dual realization. Now, it may not be the deepest in the world. You may just sort of get it, but that's the start. Once you've gotten that non-dual realization now, then magic becomes a much easier prospect, because now you realize what's going on. It's nothing to do with candles causing your wishes to happen. The way I like to describe it to people is, if you're not God, how do you expect to manifest any miracle? A lot of outsiders come into this not realizing that every proper magical tradition guides you either directly or very slowly towards realizing your divinity. So take Golden Dawn, for example. At the end of that golden rainbow, and I'm aware that the name Golden Dawn has to do with the Philosopher's Stone, has to do with pee in the morning. Don't ask. It's quite a trip. It's all alchemical. One of the things that happens is you realize you're God. You're incarnate as this. Now, if your metaphor is Neoplatonic and you're a spark of God that's manifested at this, if it's Kabbalistic, which is very similar, if it's Hermetic, doesn't matter. These are all different thought form diagrams, maps of consciousness. All of them are equally valid. All of them have a lesson for you. So I would begin, and the reason I would begin here is because it is easy to get a hold of. It's very easy to get these lessons and teachings today. I would start with a good teaching of non-duality. You can start with Neo-Advaita, Advaita Vedanta. The Vedanta Society of New York puts out tremendously good videos on the subject. Arsha Bodhi Center is a great channel. Rupert Spira is very good. Alan Watts is fantastic. Just not the hard thing about Alan Watts, or maybe the beauty of Alan Watts, is you don't know what you're getting into with him. If I say listen to Alan Watts and I just leave it at that, that might be the best thing of all, because you don't realize he is very skillfully walking you towards the non-dual realization with his lectures, and he never says that. He will never say to you, he likes the Zen approach. He likes the old Chan approach, not Zen, but the old Chan approach. He really likes that approach. Oh, Ajna said, yikes. I don't know. Maybe somebody said something stupid. And I'm just talking about YouTube channels. Okay. These are all channels that have good teachings on them. And don't limit yourself to these. These are just good channels. So, mystic, start there. So here's an order of what I think is the best to start with. Luckily, we live in the modern era where Eastern traditions like Advaita are more, they're more available and approachable than ever before. So like if you go back to like 100 years ago, Advaita was like, what? But in the modern era, it's been translated into Western language, and there's good Western teachers now. So it's the other thing that's good about Advaita is it's actually very secular. You don't need to get into the whole pantheon of deities and all of that stuff that's in the Hindu tradition at all, because you can literally extract Advaita and apply it to any cultural metaphor you want. If you want to stick within the Christian tradition, be it the light side, dark side, maybe you believe in Jesus, maybe you believe in Satan, I don't care. You can take either one or all, any cultural metaphor, any pantheon, any mythology, and take non-duality and use that as the cultural overlay for it, and it will work. It'll be great. Any style of magic you want to get into works within a non-dual lens. So Advaita or any form of non-dual teaching, all of them or even just one, you know, you have Kashmir Shaivism, you've got Advaita Vedanta, you've got, Krishnaism? I forget you have Vishvara Advaita. There's so many different Advaita, and then there's subsects of each one. So there's no end to the possibilities. You can find one that will fit your practice and view. I like Advaita. That is, I can't stress it enough. That's the most approachable, easiest, most direct, most available, most rational, most contemporary. It just fits all the boxes. Next, if you're in the Western mindset, I'm sort of divided here because there's reasons why someone would prefer one or the other. Really, there's three, but they're of slightly different value. I would like to recommend Neoplatonism, but Neoplatonism is really opaque because there's not a lot of material on it. You've got Plotinus, Proclus, Iamblichus, you've got Plato, and they're very opaque. They haven't been updated for modern thinking. A lot of the terms are used incorrectly today. They're not translated as well. If you try to read the Enneads by Plotinus, you're not going to get it. I promise you. I promise you, you're not going to get it just by reading that. You're going to need someone to do commentary on it for you so that you understand what he's saying. Because everything he's saying is very rational. You go, yes, I understand what he said, but you won't get the gnosis. You won't get the epiphany of, oh, I'm that from that. It won't do it. So even though it's a great philosophy, what we have of it is not enough. And I'm just talking about for most people. I'm talking about just the average person with an average IQ, average interest, average attention span. If I sit you down with Advaita 101, within an hour or so, you'll get the basic premise and you can start practicing. And before you know it, if you get a good teacher, you might even realize the truth in a very short order. Some people can literally pick it up in I don't even know. Like it literally, when I say pick it up, I mean, they have a realization quickly. Just realizing that you're consciousness and not all this, you're way ahead of the game. Most people don't know that. If you approach anybody on the street and say, what are you? They're going to be talk about their body and their life and their blah, 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 blah. If you say, no, you're consciousness, they're going to look at you like you just grew another lobster out of your face or something. They're not going to get it. So if you realize that you're not this, but that you're consciousness, you are all, that's the hardest. That first step is a doozy. That's the hard one. It's exactly the same realization that people who do the right psychedelics come out with when they have an ego death. They go, well, my ego was gone. My identity of myself was gone. And that's enough for them. They get it. At least they get that part of it. They don't get the whole thing, because you still need some kind of direction, but they get it. So after that, you've got Neoplatonism, you've got Kabbalah, and you've got Hermeticism. Of those three, I'd say it's a toss-up between Hermeticism and Kabbalah. The reason I say that is because there's better and more literature on both of those than there is on Neoplatonism. There's more teachers of it. The problem with especially Kabbalah, but with both of them, is that they are really, 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 really cerebral. They're really intellectualized. They're very left-brained. They're very analytical. They're very positive in that they assert, in other words, they claim things exist, at least until you reach that top level. So it's a little harder to get it. You have to jump through way more hoops to get it. If you follow the Kabbalistic tradition to get it, you can get it, but you're going to be jumping through more hoops than if you just go the direct route of Advaita. So where to begin? Start there. Think of it this way. When you say to me, Thorne, I want to be a magician or a sorcerer, what I hear is I want to be a computer programmer. So how do you begin with that? Well, you learn everything about computers and programming. You don't start with code. You can play with the code, sure. I'm not saying you can't practice a little magic as while you're learning it, okay? Let me rephrase what I said before. I'm not saying don't do rituals until you get it. What I'm saying is begin with a fervent and focused study on the theory, not the theory of magic. Because most books that so for example, Liber Null and Psychonaut, garbage. Not because the techniques are wrong. Techniques are great. But the fundamental philosophy underlying it is mostly garbage. I know some people are like, how dare you? That's one of the pinnacles, one of the foundations of Western magic, you piece of shit. No. Techniques are great. The eclectic nature, great. All of that, great. And it will work. These techniques do work. But as a fundamental philosophy, the underpinning philosophy is garbage. I'm sorry, Peter Carroll, you wrote an interesting book, but the theory underlying your technique is not philosophically sound. It's mostly New Age psychobabble. That doesn't mean I don't agree with a lot of what's in this book. So this is where I get in trouble, because I'll say it's garbage, but I'll still refer to a lot of shit in it. Yeah. Why do I say it's garbage though? The underlying philosophy is very materialistic. It's very, granted, I'm a mystic. I'm a mystic first and a magician second. As a mystic, I am into knowing divinity. I'm into knowing the truth, wisdom, understanding the truth, having gnosis, realizing my divinity, and studying all the different ways that people have come to realize it and how they would teach it, so I can deepen my own knowledge and understanding and awareness of it. So while I would say, yes, all of these techniques in Liber Null are fine, I use a lot of them, the underlying philosophy is not at all what I would recommend. At all. watching the chitty chats. Everybody be talking about each other in there. Be nice to each other, everybody. So, mystic, my point is, start with mysticism. Start with the philosophy. Start with the metaphysics. Get a good grasp of the mystical truth. And then magic is going to be a lot easier from that point forward. If you have a good grasp of, listen, people don't realize this. Magic is downstream from mysticism. Don't you know that? How many of you got, raise your hand in the chat somehow if you knew magic is downstream from mysticism the same way science is downstream from metaphysics. Science is downstream from philosophy. Magic is downstream from mysticism. Religion and spirituality, downstream from it. Mystics come first. The shaman of the tribe, the person who's like, woo, and just gets it. They are the ones who bring magic to you as an art. They are the ones who teach you the magic because they get it. They get the big picture. Well, that's okay, Ajna. You could disagree, but you're wrong. Magic is downstream from mysticism. It uses mystical ideas for magic to work. Mysticism is the philosophy. Is the philosophy. It is so. Let me try to give you a good analogy. Mysticism is like quantum physics, and magic is like the technology of a computer that relies on quantum physics for the computer to work. Mysticism is up here, magic emanates from it. Yes, it's a practical art form. It's a practical art form relating to mysticism. The mystic is what comes up with the magical tradition in every single case. It is always follow the breadcrumbs. Even Liber Null, he draws on, he shows you a freaking diagram of where the chaos met and all the different traditions that led to it. At the seed, at the core, at the beginning, the first magician was a mystic, not a magician. Always. It's okay, Ajna. I'm mostly teasing because Ajna and I tend to agree on a lot, so it's okay if you don't, is all I'm saying. You're allowed to not agree. Now, Ajna and I generally agree on a lot, especially when it comes to this stuff, because Ajna is trained in this while I am not. He is more trained in this than I am. So I like when Ajna agrees with me. That means that my own musings are in line with what I would learn at an ashram. I get a kick out of realizing these things on my own and then hearing them come out of, a guru's mouth. I really get a kick out of that. But I have reached a point now where I do need to actually study these gurus a little bit, because I've reached a point where I can only go so far with my own intellect. I have to get the ancient teachings to get the little, to squeeze that rag a little more and get the last drops out. I do have to really kind of investigate the traditional stuff more now. Most people start the other way around. I went backwards. Someone told me, I don't remember when it wasn't that long ago, that it's very likely that in a past life I was a monk or whatever, a swami or something, that it was very likely that I was a spiritual teacher in a past life too. What's that, honey? Good point. My wife just pointed. She just got me in my. She hoisted me in my own petard. Well, she said, we were all mystical teachers in a past life. Yeah. Well, that's one way to look at it. I guess Raquel, but I'm also think of it this way. I'm also like a student that as I'm learning, I am turning around and sharing what I'm learning. As I achieve realizations, I turn around and talk about them. Let's see. I'm reading the chats. I don't know who's talking to who. People seem to be saying some weird shit. I don't know what you guys are all talking about down there. I gotta let me pop the chat out. Let me see. Let me pop the chat out. Are people being trollish in here tonight? You guys know how I feel about trolling each other. If you're trolling me, I don't like that either. Let's see. Let's pop this out. Oop. What is everybody talking about? All right, there we go. Top chat sucks. Live chat. There we go. Live chat. Pop. Let me follow along with you guys more now because I've only been glancing. Let me really. All right, what do we got? Or the Black Dragon talking about vaccine police looking for him. Okay. Depending upon where you are and what country, it could be true. I don't know what's that. No, it's not. It's Christian. It's not king person. It's just person. I think it must be their nephew or something. No, it's cool. King Person is actually really cool. I do like King Person. He's one of the better Goetic kings. I actually enjoyed Balaam was one of my favorites too. Yeah, just not a king person, a normal person. No, King Person is pretty cool. That's for sure. Oh my god. Yeah, Abalam or Baalam or thing about the Goetia is you really have to realize that it's mostly misinterpretations of prior stuff that led to that. Oh, roll your tongue. Person. Is that how you're supposed to do it? Person. Man, I got a dry throat. Must be because of the way I'm saying King Person. There's this one time I actually get pretty regular nosebleeds. And one time it happened on a live stream. And somebody fucking emailed me like, I caused your nose to bleed. Worship me or some bullshit. Oh my god. People are fucking flake, man. I swear to God. This is what I mean about being very anti superstition. I'm not going to attack you for being superstitious, but I'm definitely going to attack the superstition because it's people lose their minds. Spanish is Ajna's native language. You know, I can't speak Spanish for shit, but when people speak Spanish around me, I usually pick it up. I have like a good 30-40% chance of understanding what you're saying. Like every other word I understand and I figure out what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, in the conversation between Ajna and Order of the Black Dragon, I will say that, like they're talking about, can you realize enlightenment without a guru? I think an important thing here is to define guru. There is no such thing as an external guru. No person is your guru. There are people who go by the title guru, but there is no person that is a guru. A fucking rock is a guru. But even that is not a true guru. The real guru is you. Your inner wisdom, your inner intellect, your higher self. This is why Thelema makes you go as, who was it, Black Dragon? Someone was saying, and they're right. They make you go for your HGA. That's a Western idea, but you're really talking about your own higher self, which is ultimately divinity. So ultimately, the only real guru is the inner guru. It's the guru of the self, but it's not, the ego is not the guru. The ego is the thing the guru's trying to wake up. It's a pattern that's being changed by the guru's teachings. The guru, the true guru, is inside you. It's consciousness itself. There is no external guru outside of you that wakes you up, because otherwise no one would have ever woken up, because there would have needed to be someone who was enlightened to wake up other people. You see what I'm saying? There would have been no first guru. There would have been no first person. But I agree with Ajna very specifically in that if you think you're that, if you think that you woke yourself up, chances are you're probably not. Now, in my personal case, I didn't have a guru that I knew of. I often remind people that Alan Watts, when I was learning from him, I had no idea what he was teaching me. I say this all the time. People don't understand what a shock it was to me when I realized it. Because to me, Alan Watts was an interesting character who reminded me of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he was saying a lot of things that I intuitively understood or had thought before. Never once did he say your non-duality or your consciousness. He never said any of those things. He would just talk about things and just sort of walk you around these ideas, and they're all wise and brilliant ideas, and it's really cool, and it's like, you know, it's very relaxing, and it's just so much wisdom and dripping from everything the man said. And he'd say like, well, you fool your God, don't you know? And I'm thinking with Western brain, God, I'm like, right, he's saying I'm Jesus or something. All right, whatever. Didn't click. I didn't know what he was saying to me. It wasn't like that for me. I was more interested in the Zen. I was there as a secular, atheistic type of guy who just wanted to learn some, you know, Eastern mysticism or some Eastern secular ideas that weren't going to run afoul of my atheistic mentality. I wanted to deepen my meditative skills. I wanted to just, so yeah. Then he said something that just sent my brain on a spiral of realization where I realized that there was no difference between me and everything else around me. And I started to get it. And that first peak was life-changing. But it was only the beginning. It was only the door. I shouldn't even say there was no door, but it was like I thought there was a door there and now there wasn't, and I started poking my head through it. That's what that was. And that was in around 2016. And since then I have been just deepening that. I'm where I'm at now, I don't know. I don't care. It's not a contest. It's not like there's a level of realization that you can reach and this is higher and this is lower. No. It was literally just, it's like a runaway snowball going down a hill. Once you start to get it, you don't stop. It doesn't stop. You only want to know more. You only want to deepen your realization, not as I want a quest to learn. It's more like a love affair. This is why I often say, what pisses me off about Christianity is how much it's been perverted into a corrupt, dualistic, alienating, control-oriented religion. Within Christianity, everything they say about God, not everything, but a lot of the things that are said about God are fair. They are accurate in a lot of ways. God is love. Yes, consciousness loves this shit. God is eternal. Yes, consciousness is eternal. Many of the things that they say are compatible. They better be, because the origin of that teaching is what became Kabbalah. It wasn't Kabbalah 6,000 years ago, but it became Kabbalah, the Torah, all this stuff. These things became that. Monotheism is just a half step. If you think about it, it's only a half step away from non-duality. It just externalizes God instead of making it obvious that it's, and the thing that's fucky about it is the real high level mystical rabbis in the Holy of Holies, they knew what I'm telling you. I know they did, because they wouldn't have written what they wrote if they didn't know what I know. You know what I'm saying? Does it make sense? It's like, you don't have to know, like they don't have to tell you they know. How's that meme go? Tell me you know without telling me you know. So, yeah. Now, let me ask you guys, I see a lot of you guys, discussing things. I see some let me see here. Like, I know Order of the Black Dragon is off on some stuff and they're going through some stuff, and, I'm giving them space to talk and say what they're saying. I don't agree with 99% of what Order of the Black Dragon's saying, but I respect their need to say it and have this interaction now. They're on a journey and they're suffering and all this stuff, and let's be mindful of that. But what I will say though is that a lot of you guys, Order of the Black Dragon's in a spot right now where they are not going to change based on what you say. Unless they ask you a question and you tell them something, they have a mindset right now. They're in a bad place and correction isn't going to work. What's up, Atreyu? It's been a while. Yeah. I don't remember the name, but I believe you. I'm bad with names, so don't take it personally. I'm really good with people and energy. I'm bad with names. My wife remembers you, Atreyu, so I would think I'd remember that name because I fucking love The Neverending Story. It's one of my absolute favorite movies ever. I don't know. All I'm saying though about this is for people to remain, and you are. I'm only reminding, just be respectful of each other's lived experiences, and you guys are. So don't think I'm scolding anyone here, because I'm not. I'm actually happy you guys are having a good discussion. Let me put it that way. But I will say that just recognize that things are going on with certain people, and they're suffering, and you know, this is their cope. This is their way out. This is how they're working on it. And they need help. Clearly, they need help with things. They need, if they're going through this, if they've got an abuser at home, yeah. So let's open the thing up to questions. I've already done the 2-hour mark. I managed to rant for 2 hours about the same shit I always do. How about we try something different? How about you guys, those of you who are still on the, the waking up phase, shall we say, who like non-duality, but there's things you don't quite get. Throw your non-dual questions at me. Throw your questions about that at me. Ask me, what comes to mind. Something that troubles you, maybe you believe in that, but you're having trouble with a part of it. Ajda says no politics so far. Yeah, no, not tonight. Believe me, the time's going to come when it's going to be blasting out of me again, because look, I get sick of being right, but I don't. So much shit. I shouldn't have to be political right now. So much shit's out there. I was just like, fuck, I brought it up. So much shit is obvious right now that if I have to explain it to you, there's no hope for you. If you can sit there and look at what's going on in the American political system and not realize that there is literally a military intervention going on that is using a certain orange man as their figurehead to go like a battering ram against the New World Order. It's so obvious now, like there's only a few pieces missing to prove it. So I'm waiting to see those pieces happen, just so you know. That's right, Atreyu. It's basically coming right out of a fucking comic book. It's all true, guys. This whole time, this is what drives me nuts, is for years I've realized a lot of stuff that is like, oh, it's conspiracy theory. It's true, you dumb bastards. For all these decades, you dumb fucks, people like me have been trying to tell you they're trying to depopulate, they're trying to do this. No, they wouldn't. That's all the leaders of the American government are 95% corrupt and traitors to this country and work for outside. No, they would never do that. Motherfucker, 9/11 was an inside job? No, it wasn't. Motherfuckers, you're gonna find out, and you're finding out now, and it's going to hit you in the fucking brain balls very soon, and you're not gonna be able to deny it much longer. You may not love Trump after what's coming, but you're not gonna be able to deny who the real bad guys were. That much I am willing to bet a lot. All right, maybe not, I don't bet, but I would put, figuratively, I am absolutely convinced. You've been bamboozled, Ajna said. Exactly. Okay, Dingus McPingus with the double plus good name. I do like that name. Whoever named you should name other things. That is actually really cool. Dingus McPingus asks, hi there, I got a question for you. What is ego, and what does ego dissolution look like? So first things first, ego is an illusion. Ego is a habitual echoing of thoughts to which you identify. So egoism is identification with ideas. You think you are this, but you are not. Consciousness is all there is, consciousness manifesting as these things. The things are not real, they are manifestations of what is real. This is not doublespeak, it is the closest we can get in many ways to a poetic way of saying it. So ego is not what you are, ego is what you think you are. You think you are this person, but this person is a character, like a character in a book. Frodo never existed in this universe, and yet we all have a very intimate concept of who Frodo is if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings. If you simply read the book, you got one picture of him. If you watch the movies, you got another. If you did both, you probably blended them, and Frodo looks like what's his name, but the book is still your thing. So ego is an attachment to ideas. It's an attachment, it's an identification with ideas of yourself. And those ideas are not what you are. You are consciousness witnessing those ideas in itself. So what does disillusion look like? It doesn't look like anything. Ego disillusion is like being in a sensory deprivation tank. There's no body, there's no nothing. No, ego dissolution doesn't look like anything. It is simply a relaxation of that attachment. It is a relinquishing of identification with those things, those ideas. Now, ego death, as described by many psychonauts using psychedelics and shit, or meditators, is next level, but it is not required. But it is next level. That is like the hard way. When I say the hard way, I don't mean the most difficult way. I mean, it's the hardest hitting way. So when you go far into meditation or far into chemonosis, you will potentially have an experience, and it's not even an experience, but you will have a state of consciousness in which there are no things that you can be. There is just a presence of consciousness, conscious of consciousness. There is no ego in that moment. You are literally just boop, and you're just present. You're not thinking about who you are. You're not worried about who you are. You're not identifying with anything. You're not assuming you're anything. You're not subconsciously identifying with anything. If I were to approach you in that state and ask you who you were, you would be like, huh? Like there would be no person to ask of the question. Joffrey 49 says, hello, everyone. Love the chat. I mean, it is an entertaining chat. No question. Atreus says, when you stop worrying about what you are, partially a piece of that. It's about knowing what you are and knowing that you are not this, you are that. That doesn't help though, does it? When you know your consciousness, you don't ask anymore. When you know your consciousness, you know D.H. Thorne is just a figment of consciousness's imagination. So yes, a side effect of that ego dissolution is that you stop worrying. Now, here's the thing. Ego doesn't stop just because you woke up. Ego comes and goes like any other thought, like any other illusion. Ego comes and goes. If you are incarnate, meaning you're present in this material delusion, there is always a piece of ego left. Always. I will never sit here and tell you, kill your ego and keep it dead. That's bullshit. Yes, see what happens when your ego dies. Go look for an ego death experience. That's fine. But you're not going to kill your ego and keep it dead. It doesn't work that way. The point of ego dissolution is to realize you are not the ego. The ego is just a thing. I shouldn't say it's not a thing. It's an object of consciousness. That's what the ego is. It's not a real thing. It doesn't really exist. So when I tell you to have an ego dissolution experience, what I'm basically telling you is is to find a way, and there's a million ways: meditation, chemonosis, ritual, blah, 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 blah. Sensory deprivation tanks, combine everything. You combine like a couple hits of cannabis and a sensory deprivation tank, or a good lay down in a dark room and quiet your mind, absent of all errant thoughts that are not productive or necessary, and it's mostly silence in there, and get that blurred vision going. You will hit a state where you don't even know who the fuck you are. You will just be consciousness and know that that is what you are. Bingo, ego is dissolved. There's no intellectualizing. You're not sitting there going, I'm consciousness, that shuts up. You're just present with consciousness as what you are. And in that state, you're going to snap out of that, come back to this incarnate state, because when you're in that state, I'm going to tell you, when you get deep, like you go off a cliff, like you go like, woo! Yes, unless you fall asleep first. Thank you, Ajna. Good point. When you hit that point, it's like being awake while you're sleeping. It's a fucking trip balls ass experience. I've only achieved that level a few times. I can get close to that easily. I've only achieved that asleep while awake thing a few times. There's teachers that do it every day. So I defer to them if I encounter one. I've never encountered one. I know they exist. I know they're out there. There's probably plenty of people online that are like that. I've never met one. But they do exist. But when you can achieve that awake but asleep state, I don't mean lucid dreaming. I mean, you're awake but you're asleep. You know you're conscious. Your consciousness, conscious of being conscious. And that's it. That is supreme ego death. There's actually different levels of ego death. People don't realize this. There's no longer identification ego death, where you're like, if someone says, who are you? You kind of have an amnesia. That's a kind of ego death. Then you have another level of ego death where there's just a point of self in a vast, infinite spectrum of experience. You're still a little egoistic though, because you're a localization of that awareness in that moment. But there is a state of this consciousness where it feels like a drop re-entering the ocean and disappearing. That's what I was describing before. It's like going into a sensory deprivation tank. Everything that you think that you are is gone, and you are just conscious of being conscious, and there's nothing else but consciousness. There's no ideation, there's no concern, there's no questions. It's literally the peace of death or sleep while alive. Body goes away. Yet, you will still have an awareness of that body, believe it or not. If there's sounds in the room, you can tune them back in or you can tune them back out. It's trippy as fuck. When you hit that mega deep level, it's like being asleep but awake. Thank you, Ajna, for the reminder of that point. When you said don't fall asleep, that basically triggered me to remember. It's like being asleep but you're awake. And you're not numb to the world. You are absolutely not numb to the world. That's another misunderstanding. It is that you do not react to it. You're still aware of the manifestation of the world, but you're not in it anymore. You're not fixated in it. You're not localized in it. And there are probably layers far, far, far deeper than that that we cannot achieve while incarnate. There's probably layers that once incarnation is over, you can probably go so much further. You can probably dance around the multiverse, witnessing everybody at any moment and blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? I'm being a little bit poetic here because I don't mean that literally. What I'm basically saying is there's probably a point you can reach where you are consciously aware of all conscious manifestations at once. What does that look like? Like nothing. Oblivion. To us, that's what it looks like. To that godlike state, who the fuck knows? I don't remember it, and neither do you, because we're incarnate. When you're incarnate, you don't remember what totality looks like. Yeah, I would agree, Ajna. Hypnosis is trance, which is a step in the right direction. But yes, hyperlucidity is a little different. And it is trance-like. You can appear to be in a trance, but it's not quite the same. A trance, you're still manifesting Maya. You're still like in a regular trance, like you're having visions and shit. That is still an incarnate. You may not be embodied, but you're incarnate. I know incarnate and embodied mean the same thing, but in my language, incarnate means you have an identity of you have a localization and an identity. So when you're in a trance, you can actually disembody, but still be incarnate. So you've shed the switching. I'm just going to say your food body. You've transcended the physical body. You've ignored that. You've put that away. And you go up through the energy body into the thought form body. Well, that's the spirit realm. The thought form body exists in the spirit realm. That's the astral. When you're going around, you're seeing gods and shit. That is that astral place. And some people have an easier time getting there than others. Me, I need a little help. I don't have a very good visual imagination. I have a little bit of a fantasia. I can't see things very clearly in my mind unless I'm in a state of trance. And even then, I've got to be deep enough to trigger a little bit of dreaming for it to really click. I'm getting better though. You can ask my wife. I just told her today, because like earlier today, she was looking for something. I was really busy and I visualized right where it was. Like I pictured it and I told her it's right there. And I didn't even know where she was. I said, it's to your left, right in front of you. I did it twice today. Like I basically out-of-bodied and saw the situation and told her what to do.
You didn't have a line of sight at all.
I didn't have a line of sight at all. No. And so I can do it. It's just, I'm flaky on it because I do have I'm almost blind in my mental ability to picture. Almost. I can do it, but I got to practice it. It's not easy for me. Like other people, like my wife, if I say, imagine a yellow elephant walking through the living room, then she can visualize that pretty clearly, more clearly than I can. That's for sure. She can walk over like, yeah, over here's the trunk and here's the eye. I'll be like, what? How do you even see that? So once ego is dissolved, you're still incarnate though. You still come back to this. You're not done watching this show, guys. So you wake back up in this and you reincarnate basically. So there's still ego there, but with practice, every time you come back, that ego becomes clarified, that ego becomes aligned with what you are more and more and more. Now that's a never-ending process, believe it or not. It doesn't have stages, it doesn't have a finish line, but over the course of your life, the ego can become conformed to that. That's why they call it yoga, yoking. You're achieving a holistic union with what is. Mind, body, soul, the 5 koshas, all this shit becomes aligned with the truth. You cannot perfect the body, you cannot perfect the ego, but you can perfect knowledge of the truth, and then that can, in that way, your egoic manifestation can... Language is tricky here, because if I say improve, that's wrong. If I say be perfected, that's wrong. If I say liberated even, that's wrong, because you're still having an incarnate egoistic experience. But your ego can become... Your ego can stop resisting. Your ego is no longer in conflict with what is, but becomes what is. The ego will say, oh, I'm consciousness. Okay, at least you got that. At least the ego's not saying I'm this body anymore. When the ego's saying I'm a body, an energy body, or this or that, all of those 5 levels of bullshit, so long as the ego's saying that, it's not there yet. Once ego really starts to accept that it is consciousness, that it is a manifestation of consciousness, that it is not real, then that ego can start being the mask that it's meant to be or that it originally was when you first put it on. So complete and utter final stage while incarnate ego dissolution looks like taking a mask off, realizing it's a mask, decorating the mask how you want, and putting it back on and knowing you're not the mask. So you still wear the ego mask. It doesn't come off forever. In fact, any guru that says you can be free of ego forever, they either don't understand the teachings that got them to be a teacher, or they're lying to you, or something like that. Yes, Najna, thank you for pointing out. A lot of people, here we go again. People think when we're talking about ego, we're talking about toxic traits. When people think I'm talking about toxic traits, it's just, I tune them out. They're not ready for what I'm saying. If that's well, I don't mean that quite so just, I mean, when they really just, no, you're talking about the wrong thing. You should be, shut up. If you think that ego dissolution means you're humble, no, that's not what it means. Humility is not a product of ego dissolution. Humility sometimes follows ego dissolution because you realize there's no point to acting like that anymore. But guess what? Some of us motherfuckers still play the arrogant asshole card because it's fun. Some gurus, teachers, swamis, whatever, inside they're humble as fuck, but outside they act like a prick. And they do that to make you think. They do that as like, for millions of reasons. Sometimes it's just fun. But sometimes it's because you're literally testing your student. Will my student be turned off if I still smoke cigarettes, but I act like an enlightened master? Will my student reject my teaching because they'll think I'm an arrogant person and think that that matters? Yes, Ajna, I agree. Sadhguru he pisses me right the fuck off. That's not to say he doesn't entertain me or that he doesn't have any wisdom. It's just he's clearly a WEF prick. I mean, he really is. I don't have any, and there's a lot of controversy about his dead wife. Go look into that. I don't mean to, I'm not giving anybody any libel or slander. I'm just going what's out there. Go look up the story about his dead wife and tell me what you think. Seems a little fishy to me. Allegedly. Would I meet the guy? Of course. Would I have a fun time with him? Probably. But there are guys that have followings of less than 500 people who are way more on the ball. He's a parrot. He's not, I don't think he gets it. I think he's a parrot. There are people who parrot mystical teachings, and then there's people who get mystical teachings. Now, true, it's hard to be sure just from some YouTube videos, but people who get it can usually smell our own. There's something that happens when someone gets it, a gleam in their eye, an energy pulse. I don't know what the fuck it is, but we reckon, like, I can tell if someone, usually, not always, it's not black and white, but with a high % probability, just like I can tell you're probably a Biden supporter if you're wearing a mask in your car right now, or you're a germaphobe, it's usually one or the other. I can also tell if you've done psychedelics or if you've achieved some ego death or if you're a non-dualist within a few minutes of talking to you. Not even about spiritual things. There's a look in your eye. There's a way of acting. There's a vibe. There's like a vibe check. You know what I mean? You can sense when someone's got it, even if they only got a teeny taste of it. Anybody who has really gotten like I say, psychedelics is the easiest one for me to spot. Something about somebody who has been using psychedelics and they got it, like really got it. They have a completely different attitude about life, man. It's very different. And you can tell. Other people like, that guy sounds like a stoner. I look at them and go, nah, they get it. I know the difference between a stoner and someone who gets it. Sometimes someone who gets it sounds like a stoner, but you can see this. They see through you. You probably are a psychopath person. That's okay though. We're all a little psychopathic. Yeah. Sadhguru, like I said, Sadhguru, he's got, he parrots a lot of things. He just, it doesn't mean he doesn't know a lot. He knows a lot of shit. He's been doing this for longer than I've been alive, probably. But knowing, like memorizing it, having a lot of knowledge about it, doesn't mean you know it. And again, I would have to sit with him. Sort of like, you know who's another one like that? Deepak Chopra. Deepak Chopra, he's another parrot. It's not that he doesn't get any of it. I actually put Deepak Chopra a level above Sadhguru, and that should tell you something, because I don't have a lot of respect for Deepak Chopra. I'm not saying like he's put out some good content over the years, especially back in the 80s and 90s when no one knew what the fuck this shit was he was talking about. People thought like this guy's a trip. But then take someone like Rupert Spira. Now, Rupert Spira, I don't know how much he knows of the Advaitin tradition. I know he knows a lot because he's formulated his own techniques about this. But he's more of a neo-Advaitin. You can tell he got it. You know how I can tell? Because you can spar with him. This isn't intellectual reasoning he's using. He's operating from source when he talks to you, when he's describing, when he's explaining, when he's he's looking through you. He's doing the laser beam thing that I do. He looks through you and sees through your words. He goes right through your words and gets to the heart of why you're confused. And he can direct you, not always successfully, by the way. Sometimes I think some people just act like they get it, but he can guide you to it. So he gets it. Alan Watts got it. The guy who does our Shaboti channel, he got it. I'm pretty sure the guy who runs the Vedanta Society of New York channel, I'm pretty sure he gets it. I get the vibe he gets it. There's quite a few other YouTubers that I know get it, but I don't remember their names off the top of my head. They have very small channels, but I tune into them and be like, good, someone else who gets it. Pretty sure Ajna gets it, although I'd have to really talk to Ajna. But just from their chat, I think they get it. Atropa, I think, gets it. I don't want to like judge all of you, but a lot of you get. Doesn't mean you get the whole thing, by the way. You can get it like I did in 2016, and you can get it like I got it 3 weeks ago, and you can get it like the Buddha. Okay, there's different levels of getting it, but there is a I get it versus not get it, but I can parrot it. And I don't want to be too cruel or make it too black and white, like I'm the only one who can tell you this, or that other people. I'm just saying people who get it can tell when other people get it. Because it's not just about what you say, it's not just body language, it's all of it. There's a holistic just boom that comes off of you. There's a way of looking at things, a way of talking to people, a way of reading people and interacting with things. There's an outlook, there's a pattern, there's a perspective that is clear in everything that they do. Let's see. We Are Gods asks a question. He's living up to my hopes, and he asked a question based on non-duality. So he said, ask questions about it that you don't understand. So my question is, how is anything defined by I think what you're saying is by what it is not. Real and honest question. Okay. This can be a little difficult. I'm going to start with the math version of this answer. Does any idea, we'll start with a question. Does any idea have meaning in and of itself by itself? So let's take, for example, the meaning of the number 2. The meaning of two-ness. Does two-ness mean anything if that was the only thing there was? Does two-ness have meaning in itself? In order for two-ness to have meaning, it has to be comparable with oneness and threeness. So meaning is always relativistic. It's always dualistic in that way. This means that everything that you think you know about anything is a property of what it is not. So for example, I am a human being because I'm not a tree and I'm not the floor and I'm not the chair and I'm not the wall and blah, 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 blah. What is a human being though? In positive assertion, what is a human being? You're going to say, well, a human being is a primate that's blah, 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 blah. Okay, slow down. That's the textbook answer. Let me break this down a little further. If I said, who are you? And you gave me your name. And I said, okay, fair enough. You say you're this person. When you say I am, say, D.H. Thorne, what you're really telling me is not what D.H. Thorne is. You're telling me what isn't D.H. Thorne. What do I mean by that? This is D.H. Thorne. All of this is not. So you know what I am based on what is not me. If I was isolated, if I was a universe unto myself, if I was the only thing that existed, D.H. Thorne, what would D.H. Thorne be? He couldn't be a human because there's nothing that's not human. There's only human. He couldn't be D.H. Thorne because there's nothing that's not D.H. Thorne. So what does D.H. Thorne even mean? It's just a sound. There's nothing to compare it to. And I can do this for any idea at all. Any idea this can be done to. So literally everything is defined by what it is not. Thingness is defined by what is not. Hopefully that helps, because that's, if you need me to go deeper, I can try. Yeah, I don't know what Theory Apophasis would say. I haven't watched him in a while. He's got a good channel, but I'm kind of over him lately. He's good for certain things. I still will watch him for entertainment, and he's got some wise ideas. Don't get me wrong. But I'm kind of like, I've reached the point where he's just a broken record about a few. Kind of like me, to be fair. But he's a bit of a broken record for me now. He's ultimately a materialist, not a consciousist. But that doesn't mean what he says is wrong or right. I think he's actually right about a lot of his theories with the ether and all that. I do think he's right about a lot of that. But now we are gods. Let me take you to the next level. So hopefully that answer helped. Now let's apply that to divinity or consciousness itself. Neti. If D.H. Thorne, if when I say this is D.H. Thorne, I'm saying it's not that, is really what I'm saying. What would be the best way to point at consciousness? It's not this. It's not that. It's not that. It's not this. What is consciousness? It's not that. So rather than saying, look at consciousness, the alternative is to say, what is God? Not that, not that, not that. And every time you negate something, eventually you negate everything up until you get to consciousness. That's all that's left, because you can't negate anything else. This is how you know consciousness is fundamental. You can't get any You can't reduce anything down further than consciousness. The furthest you can go, both experientially and even rationally, if you're being sincere in your question, consciousness is first and last always. This is where materialists are idiots, because they'll sit there and say, well, I know those things exist outside of me because when I blink and come back, they're still there and people can tell me. But okay. No, because you are, in order to know that, you must be conscious. Consciousness is fundamental, not the things that appear in it. Once you get rid of this whole materialistic, these things exist and they have consciousness, or these things exist and they are conscious, or any of those dualistic, materialistic mindsets, you still do not get it. You might get it a little bit, but you still don't get it fully. You still haven't really gotten it. To get it, you've got to realize, no, it's consciousness in which these things appear. And these things don't exist. They're just appearances in consciousness. They're shadows on a wall. Egoless mind is a clean mirror for pure consciousness. Yes. Egoless mind. So the mind is both the key and the obstacle, because the mind must be clarified for full realization. You can have intellectual realization, but that's a lower level realization. That's an analytical, argumentative realization. Everything I've been doing with you guys in these chats is the argumentative realization, because that's all I can do. I can't take my realization, put it in your head, because you don't have a head, and neither do I. But I can argue you into a corner so that all you've got left is consciousness. I can do that. That's one of the techniques I like to use. Just argue you in circles until the only thing left that's real to you is consciousness, and then you might get it at that point. But that's the only point of the intellect, is to argue itself out of its delusion. Once you've argued it out of its delusion, that doesn't mean it gets it. It just means that it's no longer confused. When it's no longer confused, when there's no longer blockages blocking it, when the mind is at peace without these blockages, then consciousness can be realized. The thing is, this is where you get into the language. There's no language for what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to find a metaphor or a way of saying this. Because if I say it the way I'm going to say it, it's going to sound wrong. You cannot have comprehension of consciousness. You can only have awareness of consciousness. You can only have knowledge of consciousness. Conscious knowledge of it. You can't have intellectual, you can't have comprehension, you cannot describe it, you cannot think about it. Yes, Raquel Kelly, Frank Herbert's Dune is a fucking beautiful Enlightenment metaphor. Among other metaphors, one of the great metaphors or allegories of Dune is enlightenment. Consider, one of the best lines in the whole thing is about it actually hit really hard, because two or 3 weeks ago when I had that nothing moves, consciousness doesn't move, but everything moves in consciousness, that realization that led to the gnosis of it, one of the things that popped into my head was the line from the books and the movies about folding space, traveling without moving. And I was like, oh shit, that's real. That is literally real. Atreyu, yeah, that's not a bad way of seeing it. Atreyu says, so the parrots are those who manage to argue out all the way until they have nothing left. But even though they've hit that dot, they stop there under the belief that they've been alive. Some, I think some, yes. There's a lot of people who've argued themselves into a belief of non-duality without actually achieving non-dual realization. I know a few, like personally. I won't name names, but I know they're there. Then there are people who are insincere. Think of the mega church leaders that don't believe in Jesus or God or anything. They're there for the money and they put on a good show. Think of Homelander from The Boys. I don't know if you guys watched that. I recommend it, by the way. You know, who acts like this wholesome Americana, you know, Superman analog, but he's a real piece of shit. So there are people who have memorized arguments. They've learned the language. They've learned the lingo. They've learned to parrot it all and to put on the airs and graces of someone who gets it. But ultimately, they're just parroting it. They don't believe it. They don't know it. It's just a way to make bucks for them. That's all it is. Or to have a following. It's just a way to reify their ego has become a guru ego. It hasn't been clarified. It's become a guru ego. Not a guru ego that's clarified and becomes a guru ego from start to finish. It never clarified. It just became a guru ego. Those people, well, interestingly enough, people can still achieve realization through them. So what am I going to do? Attack them? No. See, I don't do that game. That's another way you can tell. If someone gets it, they go, it doesn't matter if they're full of shit because their teachings are still on par. Like, does a book know it's God? Would you yell at a book for parroting the truth? No. Am I going to yell at a fraud who parrots the truth? No. I've said this before. I don't have much against charlatans because they're sort of like a scavenger in the wild. They pick up the ones that, you know, they fleece the ones that are gullible and dumb and aren't going to get it. And they only hurt themselves ultimately, you know, if you believe in the concept of karma, not as criminal justice, but as they're just extending their karma. They say that in India too, Ajna. See, this is what I mean. This is why I love Ajna, because I have these ideas and then Ajna comes to me or someone like him comes to me like, they say that in the traditions. Oh, they do? Fuck, I need to... Like I said, I've reached the point now where I'm starting to study this more directly because I've reached a point where I can only wring out so much of this juice on my own. I got to get more sophisticated teachings in me now. But I love hearing that. That cracks me the fuck up, man. So good. I'm glad people in India realize what I'm saying is true, because it is true. So, but I would beware those fraudulent ones, not because you couldn't become enlightened through them or something, but I would beware them because they're out to get you. They want your worship. They're forming a cult. One of the reasons why I like the dark aesthetic is I like being underestimated. I like when the love and lighters dismiss me by appearances because I know that they're not worthy of what I would tell them. They're not ready. They're only for that other way. They're not ready for the way I would point. They only want the love and light, beautiful way. I like sitting here going, I like the left-hand path because it scares away people who are not ready to truly, truly embrace it. It's sort of like, you know, a venomous plant or a poisonous plant, whatever, a venomous animal that's got bright colors, you know, sort of like that. It's like a warning. If you're not ready to look at this and recognize a valid expression of non-dual divinity, you're not ready to get non-dual divinity itself. That doesn't mean this is the only way. It just means this is my preferred way. That's all it means. This is my preferred way. And there's times that I prefer a more positive aesthetic too. Like lately, I've been thinking about for a little while toning down some of the left-hand path vibes and bringing in more of a neutral Jedi kind of vibe. Like, you know, browns and shit, and just kind of neutralizing a little bit of things, because I am no longer as enamored by some of the left-hand path culture. Some of the left-hand path culture I'm finally over, because some of it, again, is filled with superstitious morons and people who have these ideas that they're just madness. And I'm sort of tired of, it's like having filet mignon every day. Eventually you don't like it anymore. Sort of like that. And as someone with ADD, that happens to me faster than other people. All right, guys, I think I'm going to start wrapping up. So if you guys have any more big questions, and yes, Raquel Kelly, the Dagobah system is cool. It's a little too humid for me, though, and hot. I wouldn't do well with, hanging out with Yoda in the swamp. I just wouldn't. I will also tell you guys that if you're looking for some good people who get it and are now integrating science with non-duality. So of course you have that website, Science and Non-Duality, great website. I don't know if it's got an agenda that I wouldn't like, but I do enjoy all the content that they produce. There's two guys that I do recommend to you guys. One of them less so, but both of them are good. Donald J. Hoffman, in my opinion, is doing the Lord's work, as it were. I think he is probably going to be heralded in history as being a major figure for taking the reality that consciousness is fundamental and bringing that into science and getting them to get it. It doesn't mean, by the way, just because consciousness is fundamental and this is illusory doesn't mean science doesn't work as a method of inquiry or that the technology is bullshit. It just means that the problem I have with the scientific community is they've been acting like fucking metaphysicians for 300 years when that's not what they're doing. You're like asking a mechanic to explain quantum physics. Well, they're quantum physicists trying to explain reality. Quantum physics is not reality. It's a map of reality. Quantum physics actually works in consciousness. If it's not, most of the people who go quantum physics and consciousness are the same, but no, they're not. Consciousness isn't quantum physics. Quantum physics is a map, like the Kabbalah, of an aspect of what consciousness is doing. It's not, you can't take it literally. It works. It definitely works. You can definitely build spaceships to go to the moon with it. But it doesn't tell you what is, it just tells you how it behaves. Science is the study of behavior, not the study of truth. Yes, it gets you to the truth. The scientific method leads to truth, but it leads to truth about the phenomenon of reality, not the essence of reality. The essence of reality has always been the realm of the metaphysician, not the scientist. And the fact that science got up on its high horse, listen to the way scientists talk about philosophers. It's never with, it's almost like they have an inferiority complex or they're on their high horse. They talk down about philosophy. They'll be like, oh, we figured out what black holes are, but that's a matter for the philosopher now. Like they don't respect them in their true place. The philosopher comes first. Again, science is downstream from philosophy, but the modern world has placed science upstream of philosophy to its doom. This is why the modern materialistic age is just as toxic as the ancient theistic age of the last 2,000 years. They're both terrible. They're terrible perspectives. They don't work. Sure, we got technology, comforts, all this shit. Is humanity any better off? I would argue no. We may live in a golden age of peace and plenty, but nobody's happy. Everyone's sick. Everyone's got a demented mind. They think that they're supposed to take from each other and hurt each other and be assholes. Why? Because they don't think anything matters. They think that they're just a bunch of atoms bumping together. They're not, but that's what they think they are. So why bother being good to people? Why bother caring about anything more than twerking thoughts and whatever else bullshit you're into? I love that, Christian. It doesn't tell you what it is, just what it do. Yeah, that's what science does. It doesn't tell you what it is. It tells you what it does. It's a valid, very important thing, but it doesn't tell you what it is. And that's why everyone's all fucked. So that doesn't mean all scientists, like the good scientists, still respect philosophers. You can tell, but a lot of them don't. And it's you know, it's sad because our modern society has elevated the scientist above the philosopher. And this is why we're in hell. This is why the world is so fucked. And it's by intention. Anybody who thinks that this happened by accident, ultimately it's by intention. So stage one was when science was first becoming a real thing back in the Middle Ages. It started having conflict with religion because, so for example, when Copernicus or whatever said that the earth wasn't the center of the universe, they burnt his ass at the stake for being a heretic. So scientists at the time were natural philosophers, by the way. So these natural philosophers said, okay, we're not fucking with anything that they believe. We're just going to study the shit that they don't care about. And the church was very kind and outlined what you're not supposed to touch. And so those early scientists, that became what science was about. So science, early science, had a bug up its ass about anything spiritual. And that bug metastasized into a cancer that overtook science as an industry, science as a study. And for 300 years, science and metaphysics have been parted when they're supposed to be like this. Why do you think I'm into both? Have you ever noticed that I'm knowledgeable about both pretty equally? Maybe not. I may be much more knowledgeable about metaphysics, but I'm pretty fucking knowledgeable at science. I can hold my own even with people with degrees. I don't know the math, but I know the theories. I get a lot of it. I can at least have a highbrow conversation with someone who does study it for a living. So I'm a metaphysician with a secondary passion of science. But most people are not that. That's what it was once upon a time. So anyway, there was this split that happened. Then at some point, instead of it just being a habit, it became an ingrained and intentional separation that has persisted by design to fuck this civilization in its ass. How do I know this? Because the people who occupy, I'm not talking about the puppets like Biden or even Soros, the real hidden masters that run those people, they're esoteric as fuck. They know They know everything that I'm saying and probably more. They know everything that I talk about implicitly. They are metaphysicians. They believe, they know, they have true gnosis. Doesn't make them good or bad, by the way. That's another mistake people think. They think, oh, enlightenment means you're going to be a good person. Fuck no, that's not what it means. Enlightenment doesn't bestow morality. In fact, if anything, it shows that morality is just another illusion. Someone who's enlightened can be a fucking predatory monster. It doesn't change that. I promise you. Get that out of your head. That's a love and light misconception. It's a preference, but it's not the rule. It is a little difficult to treat people like shit when you know everyone's the same divinity. But if you know everyone's the same divinity and the wolf eats the lamb as part of its nature, maybe you're a wolf in a sheep society. So it's fine if you prey on other people. So these hidden masters, they're like that in most cases. They understand what they are. But they don't want you to know, because they know that if everybody knew, guess what? They couldn't control you. They couldn't get you to do what they want if everybody realized their true divine nature. For example, if you are fully awakened, or at least I shouldn't say fully, if you've had enough of an awakening to know you are a non-dual being, and everything else is too, even if you're just pantheistic about it, it's a lot harder for you to be encouraged to hurt other people because you realize you're hurting a part of yourself. So if someone said to me, D.H. Thorne, you've got to go kill that person, I'll give you $1 million. What are you going to do? I'd be like, well, why would I do that? I don't want to hurt a part of myself. They're innocent. I have compassion, but it's not forced by morality. It's not a morality deal. It's that I look at them like I look at my dog. I need a damn good reason to put my dog down. Now, I might not have the love that some non-dual people have. It's certainly not this unconditional outpouring of compassionate love where I want you to... No, rabid dogs need to be put down. I'm still at that stage. And I will probably stay there. I don't feel like leaving that stage. I think it's a good stage to be at. So they don't want you to know, because if you knew, how are you going to convince a country to go to war with another country if everybody in the world knows that they are the same divine being as they are? It's a lot fucking harder to convince people to do dumb shit when they know that. Not impossible, but much harder. They want as many people in this world as possible to be consumed by the materialistic delusion as possible. It is literally like the demiurge. It is such... The whole idea of the Gnostic demiurge, while I think it is theistically superstitious, metaphorically, or on a higher realm of archetype, it is completely true. The demiurge, while it is a metaphor, it is a true metaphor. So no, I don't think the theistic story of Yaldabaoth and Sophia are true in literal, but as metaphors, they represent something true. So I don't think that God emanated a Yaldabaoth that made the material world. No. But I think that from our position of incarnation, the demiurge is just the externalization of your own personal ego. Because your own personal ego needs something greater than you to be in conflict with in order for that ego to be reified. If you're an atheistic skeptic, there's no gods or anything, so your egregore of the demiurge is natural law, causality, determinism, quantum physics, all that shit. That's your demiurge. Because that demiurge holds you in this place. It reifies you. It makes you real. That demiurge is something you resist that stops you from doing whatever you want. It stops you from manifesting your heart's desire. You can't fly because the law of gravity says you can't fly. So your demiurge is the law of gravity, so to speak. In this case, gravity would be more like an archon, but you get the point. And the demiurge loves creating archons and using archons to rule things. The demiurge will offer you a chance to be an archon. So if you're a hardcore atheistic skeptic, that demiurge will appear to you as you could become a physicist that everybody believes. Yeah, I could become a physicist and I could write the textbooks. That's an archon. You're a spiritual person. You could become a guru and you could teach everyone. And there's so many other ways archons appear. They become government officials. They become CEOs. They become your boss at work. They become a tight pair of pants that limits you from running. So archons are just maximized personal egos. And the demiurge is the externalization of that ego as an opposing other. Oh yeah. So they know all this. And they want you so twisted up with superstition. Why do you think they don't care that magic's come back into the world as a thing? Because they've drip fed you the bullshit version completely. They promote the new age version of it. Have you noticed that? Look, this is what drives me crazy too. Because woke political ideology has infiltrated just about anything that's alternative and so if you're not a fucking Christian or a traditional Advaitin or something, so traditional practices are fine, but any of these alternative things are just inundated with the woke propaganda. Not that I am opposed, by the way, to most of the fundamentals. That is to say, I don't want my beautiful, wonderful LGBTQ plus IA plus whatever. I don't want them to suffer or be dehumanized. But woke isn't tolerance or even acceptance anymore. Woke is worship or you're fucked. It's hyper extremist fundamentalist liberalism. It takes the good idea and makes it into a toxic rule that it's moralistic. It's the same thing as the pearl clutching ninnies from the last couple generations who said everything's evil that's not of the Bible. It's the same energy just turned into this. And it's basically taken over. It's taken over alternative spirituality in ways that really drive me up a wall. That's the one good thing about the left-hand path is there's not a lot of it in there. Because the left-hand path is like a no man's land for those motherfuckers because left-hand path is about doing taboo shit. And people on the left-hand path tend to be truly liberal, not woke. That doesn't mean there aren't woke people there. It just means they don't make a very strong beachhead in the left-hand path because left-hand path is also open to some racist and bigoted shit too, by the way. If it wasn't, it wouldn't be the left-hand path. So everybody like me gets turned off for all these reasons. And I am not saying that everything in the New Age is bad or wrong. You know, I think the Theosophical Society and everything that spawned this New Age movement and everything, it had some good ideas. the good idea of like the Theosophical Society was to take the wisdom of all of the cultures of the world that were mystical and magical and special and see where they agreed and form a philosophy on that. That was a good idea. I agree, we are gods. I feel the same way. I find out I don't have an easy word for what I am except libertarian, but people don't know what that means, so I end up having to explain it. Libertarian is a true liberal. They're a classical liberal. They want everybody to be free. They want small government. They don't want discrimination, racism, all that. They're opposed to that. Yet at the same time, if they want you to be free to be a bigot, that's real freedom. Letting people be bigots and racists, so long as they're not hurting anybody, is fine. To a libertarian, someone who's like a hardcore racist, so long as you're not out there calling for anyone to be hurt, you just hate, dude, that's your right. You have a right to hate people. You also have a right to deal with the consequences of being a hateful asshole. So, as a libertarian, I'm on board with that too. Yeah, I'm a minarchist. We are gods. In the spectrum of libertarianism, I'm not an ANCAP. I'm a minarchist. So I want something close to the original U.S. government, but with whatever features are necessary in the modern world. No problem, AK Morningstar. Good to see you and goodbye. Yeah, Raquel Kelly, that's a decent way to put it. I don't advocate violence because of color, etc. Yeah, I mean, I just practice the non-aggression principle and have general compassion for all things. And that compassion isn't forced, and there's times that I don't feel it. I have sincere compassion for all things, and when I don't feel it, oh well. There's usually a good reason for it. So, non-aggression principle and genuine, not moralistic, genuine, sincere, personal compassion. Meaning I don't have a code of rules to prove I'm compassionate. I am just as likely to punch an innocent person in the face as not if there's a reason for it. I'm not going to do it just because they make me mad or they insult my ego. It's not going to be for that. It'll be because I have to. They're attacking me, or they're about to climb into a car while drunk and they're going to drive, so I got to deck them in the head. There's reasons for it. But most of the time, I'm going to leave you the fuck alone to fall on your own face. I'm not going to enable you to destroy yourself just to be nice to you. But I'm also not going to help you, and I'm not going to stop you. It's a painful thing to be, because compassion is, there's no right answer to any situation. It's always case by case. It's always about doing as little as possible, unless asked. That would be the exception. If someone says, help me, and you agree to help them, you bend over your whole ass to do it. But if you're talking about some random person on the street who's in pain, you don't necessarily intervene in that. You have almost like a wildlife photographer's mentality about suffering. You watch it, you're like, that's nature happening. I don't want to intervene because they're learning a lesson right now, or they did this to themselves, or whatever. But if that person holds their hand out and says, help me, I will run across 5 lanes of traffic to help you. You know, I'm not going to sacrifice myself because that's not going to help you, but I will do what I can to help you. I'll strap the oxygen mask to myself first, but I will help you. But only if I think I can. If I think that you're beyond my help, I'm not going to waste my time. I'll try to get help for you. You see what I mean? There's no rules here. There is no if this, then that. It's in the moment. I witness you. I recognize you. Your consciousness, I'm consciousness. We're the same being. Is it in my path to do this? Most of the time it's not. But you can ask my wife. When I see people like fall down, I'm very quick to like want to help them. When I see somebody who like, you know, is having a medical emergency or something, I'm very quick to try to help them. It's just the way I am. It's not because I think I'm supposed to. It's just my intuitive gut reaction. My gut reaction is to be like, oops, somebody fell down, help them up. So I'm not a fan of the New Age movement as it is today. It is mostly a bunch of garments. That people put on. People wear these garments of, well, they're egoic. Save your ego is narcissistic as fuck, says Ajna. Yeah, exactly. That pretty much describes the entire woke movement, is save your ego. They're all trying to be a savior, or they're all trying to be a victim, or both, with few exceptions. But let's talk about the other side. Are they better? No, there's an extreme to the other side. You still have puritanical fundamentalist shitbrains that are trying to fucking, especially now, because everyone's so divided and pissed off about this crap, that they're using this to capitalize on hate. And they're making the woke, the self-fulfilling fantasy come true, and vice versa. Why is the world being pulled apart by the two worst extremes that we have right now? Nobody likes either of them. Nobody likes the woke, and nobody likes the tradcon fundies. Nobody likes either of you. I'm not saying tradition is bad. I'm not saying conservatism is bad. Obviously, I'm not saying that liberalism is bad either. I'm saying these two extreme motherfuckers, these all or nothing fundamentalists, why are they being allowed to drag everybody into a war? We're talking about like 1% of the population on either side. We're talking about 2% total. And we're letting them decide way too much about our society. The thing is, they're being elevated by corporations and New World Order types. The media is highlighting the woke fools, making them look like the normal people. And they're also highlighting the extremists in the right wing, the fundamentalists, and making them look like everybody on the right. And so everybody in the middle is like, oh my God, we can't let these maniacs control us. And they're a little bit blind to the side that's nearer them. So for example, if you're on the conservative side, you're going to be a little blind to the literal Nazis and shit. Because you're going to be like, what are they, like 3 people out of the whole 10,000 in the room? So you're going to be like, they don't exist. What's your problem with that? We're not that. But you woke motherfuckers, you're real. You're the real bad guys. And if you switch that mirror around, they see the exact same projection. They see on the conservative side, they don't see moderates. They see Nazis all over the place, even though that's barely a percentage of that side. And when they get attacked by the conservatives and people are saying to them, you woke assholes, they're like, I'm not woke. I think they're bad too, but I don't want to lose the right to choose for abortion. And I don't want, and so they get their hackles in a raise and they think that they're being the, you get it? This is how you do it. You get two sides to play each other off like that. And you use the extremes to do it. It's child's play. I could do it to you guys if I wanted to. It's easy. That's one of the easiest forms of manipulation there is. Create a boogeyman, create a straw man that you can aim your people at. This is what people have done throughout history for every single war. You take a couple of people from the enemy country that you are trying to destroy, who you can say are bad objectively, and then paint the whole country with those people. The most recent example was the wars in the Middle East. Yes, there's a lot of fundamental jihadis and shit like that. Yes, there's a lot of that going on. But the average person who's Muslim is fine. They're wonderful. They're good people, just like anybody else. And they're victimized by those people too. But when 9/11 happened, for those of you who are old enough to remember, pretty much anyone of Arabic, Muslim, Middle Eastern descent was a suspicious, evil motherfucker to you for a while. Me, I managed to not fall for that. I fell for the rest of it, But I didn't fall for that. But this is what they do. They dehumanize people. So the New World Order has managed to dehumanize everyone by making everyone target each other for shit that's not real. Oop, there we go. Before I lose that window. Good. Had a little bit of a hiccup there. Hopefully you guys are all still there. But yeah. So that's what they've done. They've managed to divide everybody. Now, it is backfiring now. Because I mean, if friends like mine, like Jen Votz, are any example, if I'm any example, a lot of people are starting to realize what's happened. And not for nothing, one side is dominating now. When it comes to the cultural war that's been going on, I got news for you guys that are on the left-leaning side. You're losing now. I'm not saying that because I identify with the right. I'm not. You guys are losing the public conversation. Which makes me worried because I don't want you guys to lose all the way. I really don't. I just want the woke and the New World Order to go away, just like I want the Nazis in the New World Order to go away. I want them, all three of those extremes, to go away forever. I don't want theocracy to take hold in America. I don't want old school, old time religion, Bible thumping, nifty 50s, uptight conservatism again. What I want is to go back to like late 90s level tolerance and integration, right at late 90s to like around 2010. Like we had it pretty good there. Like I said to someone, I don't know if it was Jen or what, I said somewhere between the recognizing that LGBT people have a right to get married and bake the cake bigot, we lost the way. Like somewhere between the marriage and the bake the cake, or you get put in jail or whatever, fined, somewhere in that little stretch, we fell off the track. If we can go back to like that, like right before the bake the cake bigot, because no one should be able to force you to do a service like that. That's just a libertarian position. It's not because I want bakeries to discriminate. It's because if we're not allowed to discriminate in our personal lives or our businesses like that, I have questions. Because then the state can say, well, it's a form of discrimination if you don't buy their products too. What? Like that's the next stage of that. Which is what they've done, if you haven't noticed. They've already started doing that, just not about that issue. They do it in other issues. How many times have you seen a woke person be like, if you won't date a trans person, you're a bigot or something? Now, I'm friends with plenty of trans people. They're wonderful human beings that deserve the right to express that and be that. And I don't automatically assume that they're a weird pervert that wants to touch kids or something. It's never crossed my mind, because the vast majority of them are good people who are just in a weird, for our biology, situation. And it's not even that weird. Not really. Not to me. So this thing that we're watching is artificial. It's being foisted on us by two sides that are trying to gin up a war and win. And again, all you guys on the left, you're losing public opinion. And my fear right now is that the blowback is going to send us back to like the 60s or something. I do worry about that. Not very strongly, but I do worry about it. Maybe the 60s we're going to be sent back to like the 50s. I do worry about that. I don't think it's going to happen, but if you live like in the deep south, probably going to happen. You're living out in Tennessee or something like that, in the boonies. Yeah. Yeah. Watch out. I know people like my son, he's in Mississippi right now for his Navy stuff. And he's like, it is really racist down here. I'm like, really? Like, you don't know. If you don't travel, you don't know. And yes, Atropa, I mean, it's not that everything from the 50s was bad. There's definitely some cool shit in the 50s, but as a rule, I don't want to go back to the 50s unless it's like 50s with modern options of social shit. Like, I'll take the styles of the 50s to a degree. I'll take like the like the horror movies, the fucking sci-fi shit, some of the music and everything. Cool. But everything else, like, I don't know, like I don't need the whole, nifty 50s morality game. No, thank you. What I meant was the 50s. What I meant by the 50s was the puritanical shit. I don't mean the style. Style of the 50s is cool. Style of the 50s is cool as shit. I'm really talking about the pearl clutching morality of that era. Like, if you weren't married and you had a kid, people would treat you like shit. We don't need to go back to that. We can go back to the style, the theme, the dress code, the cars, the music, all that I'd be fine with. Please don't go back there with the morality shit. Please. Actually, Ajna, Reagan was gay. People don't know that. And I should put an allegedly in front of that, but he was allegedly gay. He was a regular attendee at Bohemian Grove. What I think Reagan was Trump 1.0. And I think they failed with him. I think Reagan was put there by parts of the opposition to the New World Order. For the first term, he did a bang-up job. Then they shot him, and then he became a moron. And he just started signing whatever they put in front of him. So Reagan first term was actually pretty good. At least the second half of the first term was pretty good. Was he a saint? No, but I think he was trying to stop what they started, and they took him out. They shot him in the gut, MK Ultra'd his ass, and that was it. But I think he was on the inside. I think he was gay. I do. But Reagan was definitely old-fashioned, though, so you're not wrong at the same time, Ajna. Yeah, Persona is really no different from today. If you're talking about what I'm saying with Reagan, it's really no different. You think any of these people... So I support Trump. I make no secret of that. Doesn't mean I don't think he's like a hero or something necessarily, although he might be. I think that Trump is just someone that was chosen by a coalition that includes a major portion of the U.S. military's leadership at the higher levels, not the TV generals, but the real ones. I think it includes a coalition of other countries like Russia, probably a little bit of China, if not all of China, India for sure, Brazil under Bolsonaro, but not now. Those countries were backing Trump in their way. Like when the Democrats were like, oh, Trump's a Russian plant. How do I say this without saying that they were right, but that they were right? They're right, just not the way they said. They couldn't say it the way that's true, because then you'd know, and you would be knowing that they were traitors, the DNC people, Hillary and all that. But they're not wrong when they say that Trump has collusions with Russia. I don't doubt that for an instant. Not for an instant. I knew it back then. It's just I didn't think that he was a traitor for it. I thought this is like when we had the revolution or the Civil War and you had other countries helping out one side or the other. I see Russia and these other countries as siding with the US military and Trump that want to get the New World Order out of here. That's not treason at that point. You're fighting an enemy that has taken over the country. That's not treason. You're actually restoring it. You're having outside help, like when the UN steps in or when NATO steps in. It's no different. It's just this is a very dangerous game. So Trump couldn't come out and say that because nobody would understand it. No one could deal with that. And they would have called him a traitor and been right in the media. So that's what I think is going on. Trump is not, he's not just some billionaire who decided to run for president to save the world or some shit. Hell no. Guy like that doesn't just make a decision like that. Nobody does. Well, unless you're the 5 billionaires who died in the underwater, in the submarine, I guess. Nobody makes decisions like that. Nobody says, I'm a billionaire and I'm going to run for president so that I can literally take every sling and arrow of the establishment, and all of that. Just for what reason? What does Trump get out of this? Turn off the cognitive dissonance and think, why would a man do what he's doing? Why would anyone do that? You'd either have to be the most insane being to ever walk the earth, which if you think that, you're retarded. Oops, I said the R word. Watch me get in trouble now. If you think that, you're ridiculous in the head. That doesn't mean he's not megalomaniacal. It doesn't mean he's not an egomaniac. It doesn't mean he's a good person. It just means he's not doing that for the usual reasons people think someone would do that. Because he would have given up long time ago. So Trump is a figurehead. What he actually believes, I don't know. I think that he was put in that position by the military and this coalition to take out the New World Order from the United States, to lead the charge, to take all the hits, to be the bait, to be all the things that he's been. It's not about elections. If you think this is about electing a president, you're wrong. I think he's probably still, I know I sound like a Q person right now. I think he's still commander-in-chief of the military. I do think that. And I have reasons for thinking that, including like the balloons that they refused to shut down and all this shit. There's a lot of weird shit going on that don't make any sense. Ajna makes a decent point when he says Putin packed him for the collapse of American power. I don't think it was for the collapse of American power so much as I think it was to remove the New World Order corruption from it and to get America on the side of pragmatism again. Because Russia has resisted the New World Order for a long time. One could argue they've always been resisting it because some people think that the New World Order is what's left of the Nazis that came over with Operation Paperclip and all this shit. And there's some reason to think that. There's a lot of good reason to think that, in fact. So one could argue, although they'd be kind of stretching a bit, you could argue that Russia's always been opposed to the New World Order. From the beginning. Back when it was just a little sperm floating in the vagina of politics. Yeah, that was a gross metaphor, but hopefully you laugh at it. I think what Russia wants is they know they're not going to get a seat at the table of the New World Order. The New World Order has made this clear because Russia is too old-fashioned, too nationalistic. They're not going to go along with a globalist system. They're just not. They want what's theirs and they're not willing to give it up. So the globalists have, look, NATO should have ended when the USSR ended. The whole point of NATO was for the USSR. Once the USSR was gone, then NATO should have become a peacekeeping no, not peacekeeping, a diplomatic system. NATO's focus should have gone from holding Russia in place to now integrating Russia with the rest of the world. That's what should have happened, but it didn't. Why? Because the New World Order was running it. They weren't interested in getting Russia into, up to speed. They wanted to keep Russia out. And to be clear, Ajna, America wouldn't have imperialism if it wasn't for the New World Order. The New World Order is not, it's become America, but it's not what America stands for. It never has been. America, up until World War II, was a very, we want no part of you country. We were very much anti, if you read a modern journalist take, they'll say, America was xenophobic. Trump's xenophobic. He doesn't want globalism. No. We didn't want to be imperialistic. We wanted to avoid foreign entanglements exactly like the founders suggested. They said, don't get involved in foreign shit. Focus on America. You got a big enough country with enough resources, people, and power. You don't need the rest of the world for anything. Defend yourself. Keep yourself going. And if the rest of the world got their ass in gear, they can join America too. Now, America wasn't perfect. We had that Industrial Revolution. We had the Civil War. We had a lot of bullshit. Don't get me wrong. But it wasn't until World War II that America became the world's asshole, the world's bully. That was because of the New World Order stepped in. There's so many layers to the history here that I only know a fraction of. There's people who could probably run circles around me and blow you guys' mind with the hidden history of this country. Take, for example, the Federal Reserve. Did you know that the Federal Reserve was only meant to be a temporary measure, and that the bankers, or was it senators, the people who were going to end the Federal Reserve all died on the Titanic? Did you know that? The whole reason we still have the Federal Reserve is because the Titanic hit a fucking iceberg when it shouldn't have. No, nothing to see here, huh? You guys have no idea. 90% of the shit that you think is an organic situation, like a tragedy, is intentional. You guys have no idea. Look up Operation Northwoods. That's just one we know about. If you know what Operation Northwoods is, you know you should not trust this government at all. When people are sitting there like, Trump's a conspiracy, you're all conspiracy theorists. You don't know shit. If you did, you wouldn't trust anything about this government. But at least 50 years ago, this government was primarily looking out for this country. So they kind of got a pass because at least the people were like, well, they're bad guys, but there are bad guys. Trust me, I know that's the mentality. That was my mindset in the 80s. I'm sitting there like, man, I'm a little kid and I'm like, I know our government's kind of fucky, like as a little kid, I knew it. But I also said, but they're my government. I gotta be patriotic. I gotta support my country, and my country protects me. So guess what? That's the side I was on. It's not an unreasonable position to be in. Yeah, I don't think there's many conspiracy theories anymore. I think they are mostly conspiracy facts at this point, Raquel. There's not a lot of conspiracy theories that didn't come true at this point. And some of them just haven't been fully exposed yet. Like the population reduction, that's already a done deal. That's not going to stop. The only thing we can do is mitigate it from getting too much worse than it's already going to be. By the 2040s or 2050s, the fertility crisis will be at its peak. The world's going to be in fucking weird shape because of it. And if the New World Order doesn't win, if we get rid of them and the good guys, quote unquote, if the better of two evils wins this next phase of things, we'll still be going through fertility crisis, but it won't be the draconian dystopian nightmare that the New World Order would turn it into. Ajna asked, baby blood drinkers though. My jury's out. You ever heard me rant about my maybe pile? And I don't really have I don't have much of a garbage can for ideas. It's mostly a maybe pile with different levels of maybe. And like, then there's a garbage can like way off there. Baby blood drinkers is not in the garbage can. It's in one of the middle rows on the way to the garbage can in the maybe pile. I think it's very possible, but like some people got mad at me like a couple months ago because I posted a video of, what's his fucking name? Johnny Depp being handed like adrenochrome. And I put this post up like, is Johnny Depp really doing it? Now I was sort of tongue in cheek, but I also meant it because it was like a little like, is this real adrenochrome or is this the synthetic shit? Is he doing a take, which I didn't know at the time. Is he doing a take on that movie? I didn't know that part. Fear and Loathing, because that's apparently someone said that was like a reenactment of a scene in Fear and Loathing. Okay. But I posted it and people flipped the fuck out. But some people knew the whole frazzle drip, Pizzagate, baby blood drinking, adrenochrome story. And look, it doesn't have to be adrenochrome. We know they do things like that. Whether it's blood drinking, I don't know. But we know they do shit like that. And you know what's ironic, Ajna? There's probably some truth to it. Because Christians were probably doing it too. And the Jews were probably doing it. Like, this is the thing. We have this warped sense of history, like there's good guys, bad guys, liars, truth tellers. No, they all lie. It's all lies on some level. Nobody has the whole truth because we're not supposed to. History's been written by the winners, and history is always a fabrication. It's always our best guess based on our highest, hopes for the situation. So I don't worry about that stuff too much because I don't think anybody's clean on that level. I don't trust any of them. It is a platonic position. It is Eddie Romanov's position. Anyone who wants power should never be allowed to have it. I've said, and I can never remember the guy's name, but he did the comics for the Watchmen, and he became like a magician in 40. He's a cool character anyway. He said, and I love quoting this, we don't need rulers, we need administrators. We need administration, not rulers. We need a society that is not about rule, but is about administration. There's a big difference between someone who's an administrator and a ruler. An administrator is giving their marching orders by the people, by the law, and the law is written by the people. A ruler is the one who decides the law, executes you if you don't like the law. So we don't need rulers. We just need administration. I mean, let's be honest. From the moment America was founded, it's been wavering because the system the founders came up with was genius in a lot of ways, but it also had some Achilles heels that have been exploited ever since. You're talking about the best system we've come up with, but it's got some loopholes, guys. One thing you can say about a dictatorship is, they strong arm their way through everything, so it's harder to fucking corrupt them. This is why Russia is so hard for the New World Order to crack, because it's still oligarchical. It's still being run by tyrants, basically. Same thing with North Korea and China. They're being run by tyrannical groups and tyrannical people. So it's hard to break that. But America was able to be conquered without a shot because of its way of doing business. Doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that it was easier to do. They didn't have to fire a shot. They just had to get elected. And to get elected, they just had to get the morons to sign on. And that's easy. As a content creator, who's luckily a more sincere, honest, and benevolent content creator, I know the tricks of the trade to do fucking, you know, things to draw your eyeballs to stuff, and I don't do it because I don't like it. Propaganda, cults of personality, lies, deception, half-truths, lying by omission, lying by structure. It's all how they got us. They didn't have to fire a shot because they just got in your head. All right, I am definitely running down here. So, and it's getting late. So, thank you guys, especially your super chats. I think I missed one. It was Jay Sauber. I don't know how I missed it, but I did. Thank you, Jay. If you're still here, thank you so much for your super. And for anybody else I did or didn't get to with your questions or super chats, thank you. And I apologize if I should have paid attention to it. But, oh yeah. I don't know if anybody's going to be in the Newark area tomorrow, but I'm going to be doing a presentation at Iron Garden again. So for those of you who will be there in the area, you might want to check it out. But it's a little last minute notice, so I don't think anybody will make it. So yeah. All right, guys, I'm going to go. If you guys are, I can't think of what I was going to say. I'm tired, guys. Have a wonderful night. And in the meantime, mind the shadows. Yeah, that's good. That's a good way to end it. Just mind the shadows. Have a good night. Talk to yourself while you do it. Blah, 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 blah. Click all